now that I've had you and Daryl on, I feel like the next person to have on is either like Julius Anglicus or
I love Julius.
Quentin O'Brien or
Quentin. Yeah, he'd be a good one.
Yeah,
He's very smart.
Adrian tells me that I should have him on because him and I have like complete polar opposite ideas politically.
Yeah.
And she wants to have us both on a podcast so that it could basically devolve into, or actually
Thing is,
evolve into a debate.
I don't know if he would talk politics because he's not much of like a. I'm simply going off what I know, the side I know of him, which he's just gonna be like, all right. You know what I mean?
Sounds good. Whatever you want to think. Yeah.
Yeah.
My problem is maybe there's a maturity to that because my problem is like I cannot not say something.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, hold up. What are you saying? What did you about what? And then off to the races.
Yeah.
But Drew, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So the precursor to this was actually I was at the last stand-up fight series that Chad runs, and after Luke Nelson fought, you got into the cage and did a face-off, and it was supposed to be like the precursor for the title fight. And I was like, holy shit, you know what I mean? Like, that's an amazing fight. And that's when I reached out to you and I was like, hey man, before this fight, I'd love to get you on. And at first, I don't know if you remember, but you were like, I'd love to be on. But dude, you had like 6 fights on your calendar.
Yeah.
And I think like 5 or 6 of them all fell through. Can we briefly just talk about that? So like, first of all, that's a full schedule. Do you normally do that? Do you normally book that many fights?
Yeah. So we try to fight like 4 or 5 times a year. It's not like other sports like boxing where you take a fight every couple months and then, or once or twice a year, or like MMA where you can fight every 4 or 5 months. Kickboxing and Muay Thai are more like in the sense where you fight more frequently. One, because in those sports, the fighters at the top level have fought so many fights and they've been doing it at such a young age. You need a lot of ring experience to prepare yourself for those high level fights. So that's something I've always tried to do is just stay as active as possible, try to go for 4 or 5 fights a year, train year round, and just be ready for the next level the more we train. So
that was always something that kind of like astonished me was like the Muay Thai records, not necessarily that the wins and losses, just the sheer number of them. Like you got guys like in the 200-300s and I'm just like, holy shit, dude. Like think about it like this. Let's say you're in America and you can start fighting professionally at 18, right?
yeah.
Like if you fought 10 times a year, you get 100 fights, not just wins or losses, just 100 fights, barring any injuries, anything like that, in a decade.
Yeah.
So like you're now 28 and you have 100 fights. That's insane. I remember I hit 10 fights as an amateur MMA guy 5 years in. 10 fights. So like 1/10 that same kind of volume threshold. I had Chad on, and when I had Chad on, he talked to me a little bit about like Muay Thai and everything. But I'd be curious to hear from you. First of all, is your goal kickboxing or Muay Thai or boxing? Like, what is your chosen path?
Yeah, so my chosen path is kickboxing, and it's led into Muay Thai, and then I fell more in love with it the more I started training and doing it. You know, it's funny because originally I wanted to do MMA.
No shit.
I started, just like a kid watching like fight movies, kung fu movies, like loving that kind of stuff. Then I got into like UFC, watching like Anthony Pettis and like Chuck Liddell and like all the greats, Anderson Silva, and I was like, that's something I want to do. And I trained, did some ground game, wasn't a big fan of it, did one Naga tournament, did all right, but was like not passionate about it. And then started kickboxing and just fell in love with it like immediately, punching, kicking people, dropping people. Like that's always just like excited me.
You found an affinity towards the striking martial arts, not
Yeah.
so much the grappling ones.
Yeah, which I love watching it. I remember watching guys in the gym roll, and it is like art, poetry, emotion, just people rolling. But in terms of like things that I fell in love with, definitely the striking aspect.
It's funny that you say that because I'm like the opposite. So like I did get into MMA, right? But I also still love watching boxing, kickboxing. Like I never really lost an affinity or respect for the arts that I did not prioritize exclusively, because I always looked at it as like, at least from my perspective, like everything is a part of me. So like I have to have some boxing, I have to have some kickboxing and Muay Thai and wrestling and whatever. Like I have to put it all together. So I can't not respect any one particular craft. Just wanted to take a second to pause the action and just tell you guys, thank you so much for consuming our content. Easy Talk is a passion project. This podcast is just a bunch of like-minded people coming together to produce some cool stuff and talk to some cool people. One of the things I would very much appreciate is if you could possibly like the video or subscribe to the channel, just because it helps us in the algorithm and ultimately to grow, to get more exposure to everybody, including ourselves, and ultimately just make a better product. Take a second, I'd greatly appreciate it, and on with the show. With jiu-jitsu growing and with striking kind of, I want to be careful how I say this, man. I'm going to keep it to boxing, not necessarily kickboxing and Muay Thai, because I'm not learning enough about that. It's oftentimes said that like boxing kind of lost its way. And if you look at MMA, it's kind of plateaued, but right now the grappling aspects are really growing, specifically jiu-jitsu. But there's also this like, almost like combative of like, you know, the strikers calling the jiu-jitsu guys like, you know, gay or boring. And then the jiu-jitsu guys are like, oh, if it was a real fight, I'll get a hold of your neck or something like that. Where do you think this animosity between martial arts stems?
I think it's just you're on two different sides of the road. You know? You got like just like the old Hollywood movies. You got the East Side boys, you got the West Side boys, and they don't like them because they're over there, and they hate them because they're over here. You know what I mean? I think it's
you're not us, boo.
Yeah, exactly. And I think strikers lean towards more like well, if this was stand up, I would take you out because that's where their strong suit is. And then grapplers would be like, well, yeah, but if you was on the ground, I could take you out. I mean, which are both are true. You know what I mean? If they were to just strike and the guy is solely jiu-jitsu and the striker is solely striking, I mean, the striker's going to win. If it's ground game guy against or on the ground with a striker, ground game guy is going to win. It's like trying to fight a shark in the ocean. You know what I mean? You can't do that.
I just always found it weird because it's like we acknowledge that we are both proficient in something completely different. So like, why does it even matter too? Like, I think it stems from insecurity. Like, I think the jiu-jitsu guy secretly is worried about like, well, what if I can't take him down? And then I think the striker is secretly worried like, well, what if he takes me down?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, but like, it's still combat.
Yeah.
It's just mutually exclusive. Like, it'd be the equivalent of like saying the soccer player looks at I don't know, man. I don't fucking know sports, to be completely honest with you. You play football, right? What's a sport close to football? Rugby? Yeah. Do you ever go to the rugby guys and like put some pads on and I'll tackle you really hard? Like,
no, we fuck with the soccer guys though.
Oh, well, that's okay. Yeah. All right, so I guess it exists everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's just like a sport rivalry.
I'm red, you're blue. Boo you.
Yeah,
Yay
exactly.
me.
Yeah.
It's interesting though that you first wanted to get into MMA, but then found your precursor, your affinity towards the striking martial arts. How many years have you been training now?
So I'm trying to think. I think I started because I remember I was a senior in high school and I would go to the gym at 5 a.m. and work out at the gym, the fight gym. And then I would go to school. So probably senior year. So 17, 18 is when I started training. So
you're the reason why I tell older men to like, hey, you got to be careful talking to these little kids now because like a lot of them are fucking cold.
Yeah.
Like I know like 30 or 40 years old are like, oh fucking no, you better watch how you talk around me. I was like, you better watch how you talk around him, man. Like it's a different age now. You got 18-year-olds that can fuck people up.
Everybody's learning how to fight now.
Yes,
so,
it's crazy.
I think it's a good thing because I think it bounces out like young men, especially because I mean, you know how it is growing up. Everyone thinks they're like the top dog when they're 17, 18 and they're ready to, one wrong word, they're ready to fight it out. But it's like now people that know how to fight, know where it could go, know what they can do. You know, it should
gives you that confidence.
Yeah, it's the confidence, and you kind of just brush it off at that point. So I think it's a good thing, honestly.
I'll go a step further. So like, because you're a little bit bigger than I am, but so I'm like 5'8", a buck. When I was in high school, I was like 5'6", a buck 40. Like I was a small kid, and there was this kind of like fear of like, man, I really hope like one of these big motherfuckers doesn't like pick on me because like I don't know what I'm doing. I could wrestle at the time, but I didn't really look at wrestling as like, well, I can't fight, you know what I mean? And then I remember when I started training MMA, I was like, oh, cool. Now if anything happens to me, I'll fuck them up.
I'll just do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Guess how many times things have happened?
Zero.
Zero.
That's
like,
how it goes. Yeah.
I think martial arts in general should be added to the curriculum of like public education, to be completely honest with you. And then give them a choice. Like you could either choose boxing or you could either choose kickboxing or wrestling or jiu-jitsu, but give them something. And I guarantee you're just going to have a fundamentally different subsect of humans that kind of like transcend into adulthood because of that newfound confidence. And I would even go as far as to say is like for women, I think certain martial arts should be like mandatory, like jiu-jitsu or wrestling, because it's like
self-defense.
Yeah. I hate to say it that way.
I remember in like high school.
Well, you have kids. Do you have a daughter? Forgive me.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So I you know what I mean? If your daughter came up to you and was like, Dad, I'm going to learn boxing for
Yeah,
self-defense.
immediately.
Yes.
But you're not learning from else. I'm going to teach you how to fight.
Is that what you think?
Yeah.
Why not? You don't trust anybody else?
No, I do trust him, but I think, and this might be just like an ego thing, but it's like, I feel like I'm a pretty good striker, so I think I know what I'm doing. And it's like, if anybody's going to teach you and put effort into you to make sure that you're learning the correct way, who more than your own father? You know what I mean? So although I would trust other people, like right now I'm trying to get my son in jiu-jitsu. He's about to turn 6.
How old are your kids? Okay, so 6.
So my son is 6, my daughter's 9.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to get my son in jiu-jitsu right now. So just looking at different gyms, it just works good with our schedule and his schedule. And so, yeah, it's not that I don't trust other people, because, I would trust them with instruction. But in terms of like striking, that's like my own love and my own passion. And so it's like for anyone to like show you more than me, I just feel like it's just not possible, which obviously it is very possible. But
what if one of your kids decided to come up to you and go like, Dad, I want to fight?
I've thought about that a lot, because I was teaching when my son was like 2, I was teaching him how to fight, and that kind of turned his solution for everything, which I'll just start swinging, and he that you can hit. So at 2-year-olds, they're swinging their arm back.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah. No, it's just they're swinging their arm as hard as they can, closed fist. So we just kind of like got away from it. But if my son or daughter came up to me and said they want to fight, I would entertain it, but I'm trying to teach them how I am with other sports right now. Like my daughter's in basketball, and I decided I'm not going to get involved until I see that they're self-motivated to where they have a passion for it themselves, and then I'll step in and help you with the direction of wherever you want to go, because I feel like in this time now we can pull so much from so many different sources, like YouTube or like instructionals, or pro players that put stuff out for you to follow, like drills and how to eat and things like that. So I'll help create a plan for them and get them on there, but they have to be self-motivated in order for me to get involved, or else, because I don't want to force them to do anything they don't want to do. So
it's interesting that you say that, and this is where like my toxic masculinity comes out. If I would have had a son, because like right now I just have a daughter.
Yeah.
So my wife flirts around with the idea, well, what if she wants to go into this? I'm like, no, she's not gonna do that. Like there is a part of me that's like, don't get me wrong, when she's like wrestling her cousins and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, like like do this, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then there's a part of me that's like, I don't want you to learn the lessons in life that I learned the way I learned them. Like
Right.
I don't want my kids, even if I had a son, if he wanted to train martial arts, but like he had an affinity for school and wanted to like really push himself, professionally, like that would be the best case scenario. Like you want to do martial arts, but you're also like, hey, I want to be a dentist. Like, thank God.
Yeah, perfect. You know what I mean? If you have another route to go, yeah. But I think
How
my
many
thing
guys
is, like,
don't?
think about how many life lessons you've learned and how much you've learned about yourself through fighting.
Correct, but here's the thing: is like, would it have only been fighting that I could have learned them from? Because that's the thing, is like we have this kind of skewed bias because that's how we learned it. So we're like, we kind of tie an affinity towards it. Like, without kickboxing, I wouldn't have learned this. Maybe you would have learned that same lesson some other way, in some other craft, at some other time. I'm not necessarily married to the idea that fighting, I want to be careful how I say this, because I love fighting.
Yeah.
And it did teach me a lot. But I'm not convinced that it would have been only fighting that would have taught me a lot of these lessons. Perhaps some of those lessons, yeah, I did have to get hit in order for that one to like ring true.
Yeah.
But I don't like to think that that's the only way that I've arrived to this person that I am today.
I'm in agreement with that, but I would say in terms of fighting in itself, it has to be something of equal stress.
Fair.
Because like in fighting, you have the flight or fight response where you either show up or you back out. And so when you get in uncomfortable situations, you got to be able to rely on yourself if you're going to be able to step up to the plate or if you're going to retreat. You know what I mean? And I think fighting more than anything gives you that platform to realize that, when the opportunity presents itself, I can step up to the plate 99% of the time or whatever. You know what I mean?
I will agree with you there.
So it's like, that's a hard lesson to learn outside of something that gives you such like a conflict up front, like fighting does. Like sports, sure, that maybe the pressure of the moment, but there's no like damage you have to think about that you could consume from a fight, you know? So
I think that there are still like physical consequences from other sports, but I think what you might agree with me as well is the fact that it's isolated to the individual too.
yeah.
Because like when you're in a fight, you're not in a fight like 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. Like you could be on a football field, and I would make the argument. I personally feel this. I think football is the most dangerous sport outside of like hockey in terms of like head trauma.
Yeah.
Right.
Or it's number one in leading in CT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we say like, oh, we can't have boxing in high school and stuff like that. It's like, that's funny because we have high school football, and that's like one of the biggest sports, right? Yeah. Anyway, beside the point. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like, let's say in football you could still receive a lot of the physical damage that you would in a fight. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's necessarily the risk of like physical damage as much as it is also the fact that it is all on you, man.
I was just about to say that.
You can't blame it on the quarterback.
You
or the
lose
line.
a football team. You lose a football game. You can blame it on the receiver or bad passes.
I didn't get to play enough.
Yeah,
coach didn't put me in.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
But in an isolated sport with fighting, which granted, is it really an isolated sport? No, because you have your team, your coach, everyone that puts so much time into you, your family that support it, your friends' family, everything like that. But in terms of the fight itself, you're locked in a cage or you're in a ring and you're surrounded by your friends and family and you're fighting someone who's been watching you for months, getting ready specifically for you. So it's like, yes, at the end of the day, you have no one else to blame but yourself for things. So.
I would even go a step further because I do agree with you on it's like the village aspect of like preparing for a fight. Like I never felt like I was alone. I always felt like I had my teammates, my family, and all that stuff. But have you ever gotten to the point, or have you ever had the moment where in a fight it was almost like a detriment because you were like, man, I really hope I don't lose in front of my family. Like I really don't want to get knocked out in front of my parents or something like that. Have you ever had a moment like that?
I think early on when I was an amateur, I had that kind of feeling, just because you want to show people that like you're good, or you want people to believe in you the way you believe in yourself, or, you know, it's early on. So you want to show people that you don't suck or something like that. But I think more so now that I'm a pro and I've been doing this for a while and I have like a lot of amateur fights, I think one thing I've always gained from Floyd Mayweather, he said it best. And from the very beginning, when I started fighting, I would always watch everything. He's very motivating. He'd always say, fuck it, it's going to be what it's going to be. You know what I mean? And so in my head, it's predestined. Whatever happens, happens. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to fight my fight. I'm going to, you know, follow my game plan. And if I continue to do what I think is right, you know, the favor will be mine. But
that's interesting. So are you saying that when you go out to the fight, you have this mentality of like,
fuck it, it's going to be what it's going to be.
Like there's nothing I can do to change it. Like it's already kind of set in
stone. Of course, I believe, you know what I mean?
Preparing properly.
You control the outcome, right? And you have to adapt and overcome inside the ring or cage. But at the same time, I do feel that like the phrase, fuck it, it's going to be what it's going to be, more derives from the idea of like really limiting your thoughts and not going down rabbit holes of what if, or what if this happens? Because I mean, you can make 1,000 scenarios of what ifs before a fight comes, right? Especially when you're about to walk out. So really, it's just keeping a straight mind, believing in yourself, and go out there and doing it. So,
no, that's I would be the first person to tell you that when I was fighting, I probably fell victim to some of that of like, if he does this, I'm gonna do that, and if he does this, I'm gonna do that, and it almost got me like physically exhausted. The way I was like mentally just draining myself, and it wasn't until some of my later pro fights where I was like, okay.
You know
he does that. Okay, then I either get hit or I don't.
Yeah.
Or I block it, and then we move on. Or he knocks me out and the fight's over anyway, so I don't have to worry about it.
That's a big conversation I have with my coach because I am a very like strategic planner for fights. And
do you watch tape?
Nonstop.
Okay.
I watch all the fighters that I love to watch fight. I pick apart every single. I'll watch the same fight 5-6 times in a row, and I'll watch different things each time, and I'll pick apart different things. And so I'm fighting somebody, I'm studying. So when I'm about to fight somebody, I'll watch their fights. I'm seeing how they step, how they breathe, where their hands go after each punch. And then mentally I would make, okay, well, if he does this, I do this. But I would do that for so many things that it overwhelms you when you're in the fight because you're trying to do exactly what you planned, but you've overcorrected on so many things. So me and my coach talked about looking for a limited amount of things that we feel we can capitalize on that are realistic. That way I'm not overwhelming myself in the fight, and that I know I can do while I'm in there. So,
do you think it's possible to be too cerebral? Meaning that you're thinking about all the things that you should be doing instead of just doing them.
Yeah, because I mean, as you know, when you fight, it's muscle memory. If you get out there and you just do you, because like when you're sparring, you feel like you're on top of the world, right? Because
there's no stress.
Yeah, there's no stress. You know how to defend. You know how to move on shots, you know how to step out, you know how to counter, you know how to block counter. You can see a couple steps ahead for certain things after you can pick repetition. And so in a fight, if you're overthinking, you don't have that, you don't give yourself that flow state mentality where you can just fight your fight and then as stuff comes, react, because you know how to react when you're in sparring, right? Why wouldn't you be able to do that in a fight?
It's actually
overthinking. I think that stops that.
I've never heard someone say it like that, but that makes absolute sense. That like, I never looked at training as like trying to prepare for a fight. I looked at training as like preparing me for any fight. Mm-hmm. So like whether I'm fighting the number one guy or the number 100th guy, I should be prepared. Mm-hmm. And how do I prepare that? Through repetition, through getting to the point where like I'm just now without having to think. Okay, he just switched stances so that I know that either he's going to come in with his lead hand is now his rear hand, so now it's going to be his power hand, or perhaps he's looking for the outer shell so that I don't see maybe like a check 3 coming if I'm coming in. I used to think about all these things. And then for the last like 3 fights I had before I retired, I was just like, and for good and bad, right? I was just like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to see what he does. I'm going to react accordingly. Like
it got to those the point, fights, how did you?
Well, 2-1, right?
Yeah.
So like, but here's the thing about that: it's kind of a skewed sample size because the 2 fights that I won, I finished the guys in like under a minute, like cold. You know what I mean? And then the fight that I lost, the kid's like a phenom. You know what I mean? He's in the UFC now and he's fucking crushing it. Yeah. It's kind of a skewed sample size, but like I just wish I would have developed that skill set earlier in my career because for the first, my whole amateur career, I was just like, oh shit, yeah. The whole entire time. And I thought that once I went pro, like, okay, I'm a pro fighter now. Like, that'll go away. No, it went even more. Because everyone started telling me, like, okay, well, now the record's permanent. I go, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Now
and
it's
you're fighting guys.
Better guys.
Yeah, better guys.
5-minute rounds instead of 3, and they can elbow my head off now.
And they're getting better. The more fights you get, the better the guys get. So it's not like you're just...
Congratulations. You won. You just made your job harder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But let me ask you this out of curiosity. What is the fuel that guides you for fighting? Because you don't need to fight. Like, you have a job. You have, like, a successful life. So you're choosing to fight. What is the goal in fighting?
Pure passion. But my goal is to be world champion. I so badly want to be a world champion in kickboxing. I want to be a world champion in Muay Thai. And those are like my 2 sports that I just want to dominate so bad. And I think that's just been a driving passion force in my life that where, like, that's, I mean, as a fighter, I'm sure maybe not so much anymore, but when you're fighting, it's like you wake up, you're thinking about fighting. Anything you watch, fighting related. You're walking in the kitchen, you're shadow boxing. You walk, you're running.
That guy.
Yeah, not anymore, but you know what I mean? But like, you know what I mean? When you're like fire.
Sure, your wife is like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, like, just take the chicken and go.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like you walk past a corner, you're within the corner. Things like that, you know, and I think it's just pure obsession. And so like for me.
What's the definition of muscle memory?
Yeah.
You're seeing something, so you're like, oh, that's how I'm going to react.
And so it's just funny because like when you think of kickboxing and Muay Thai, there's no money in it. Like, let's just be honest.
And MMA.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much money in fighting.
Yeah.
The peak is nice.
But you have an opportunity to make more in MMA than you do. Like, for instance, like in MMA, I guess I don't really know how to word this.
No,
but you have an opportunity to make more money in MMA, especially in the U.S. than you do.
You talking about like at all levels?
Yeah, just at all levels, yeah.
Well, what is, if you don't mind me asking, what is like the average like Muay Thai kickboxer make for like their first pro fight? What's like an average purse?
Just depends. My first fight, I made $300.
Flat,
or $300 to fight, $300 to win. I'm sorry.
That was exactly the contract that Shamrock offered me to go pro.
Yeah.
And that was the one that I turned down and then renegotiated for more. But like then I got up to 500 and 500, and I felt like I was such a genius. I was like, see, these guys are making. But for MMA, that's exactly what we were offered, 300 and 300.
Yeah. And I know it. Obviously, that price has gone way up. But
I don't think so, brother.
Yeah, well,
I think you'd be surprised.
My thing is, I know a lot of promotions offer kickboxing fights regardless, like $1,000 flat fee. It's just like you fight
for pro debuts.
Yeah. Well, not for pro debuts, but just for kickboxing fights in general. A lot of them are just $1,000 flat fees plus commission for tickets. But
yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, but if you're relying on that money, it's not.
No. I mean? So let me change the essence of my question. Forgive me. So like, let's say for instance, like in the UFC. If you make it to the UFC, which is difficult to do, it's not an easy task, right? But if you make it to the UFC, I believe the first fight is like a 12 and 12. So 12,000 a show, 12,000 a win. Yeah. So if you make it to the UFC and you're like, of 100 people ranked in your weight class, you're ranked 100, you win a fight, you'll at least go home with 24K before taxes and all that stuff. I'm not sure what it looks like in Muay Thai kickboxing. Like, let's say you get to Glory. Do you know, like, what those purses look like?
I don't know what those guys make, but I mean, I've spoken with.
Can you Google that real quick, Tony? Sorry, can you Google like entry level? Out of curiosity, let's see if it's open.
I know
Glory
people that have fought in Glory when they're in the U.S. and I think they got paid $3,000 flat. But at the same time, you have to pay for brain scans. You got to pay for everything, like your physical and everything out of pocket. So yeah, they pay for your hotel while you're there, but you have to pay for your own flight. So it's like half that money goes
you have to
away.
pay for your own flight?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is taken out right off the bat.
It doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, and I know it's cheaper to like I've spoken to coaches across the U.S. that have talked about fighting. It's cheaper to fly someone in from overseas than it is for us to go over there because just cost of living is different. So
5,000 per fight.
Yeah.
Flat?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
average.
roughly. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, then you'd be correct. Like if you're like the bottom of the barrel Glory fighter, you're going to be making half. So I said 12 and 12. That first 12 is just a show. So you can lose a fight and make twice as much as a kickboxer. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. Maybe us MMA guys need to shut the fuck up about.
Yeah, I mean, it's this the lens of what you look at it through. You know what I mean? Like, because boxing, you take a boxing fight, 4 rounds, 4,000. You know what I mean? So I think it's just how deep the pocket is for that sport. Like boxing has been around for 100 years. You know what I mean? So.
And I've also heard of horror stories of boxing too, for like the undercard getting paid like absolutely nothing.
Yeah, setups. Yeah.
Like I think it was the Jake Paul. No, it was a Oscar De La Hoya card where like he was basically like talking shit about how like Dana pays the UFC guys, and he did an MMA event with Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz. And apparently the guys like on the undercard, like the first fights of the night were making like $500 a show, $500 a win. And Dana blasted him on it. Dana's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like we're not paying our guys. Look at what you're doing here.
Yeah, comparatively, I think the UFC definitely pays better than boxing for like not low level, but like
entry level into the
mid level. They
organization.
probably definitely pay more. Obviously, we all see like the big wigs, Canelo, Terrence Crawford, Gervonta Davis, all making millions per show, but that's like top 1%, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
The fact that you could just name them off proves it.
Exactly.
If I asked you like, okay, how many fighters make 10,000 a fight? You'd be like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had the same mentality whenever I was competing. I was like, I'm not doing this for money or fame or anything. I just wanted to be the best in the world, or like see if I could be. You know what I mean? And that's why when I knew that I couldn't, it was really easy to retire because I'm like, you know what? I'll never beat that kid. My time is up. And it was a much easier pill for me to swallow than I thought it would be. But surely as athletes, as fighters, we need to understand the impact that just the hope of bigger purses, bigger money, and all this other stuff to at least facilitate a lifestyle. Like, imagine the fighter you could be if you didn't have to have a day job. Exactly. If you could make enough money doing this. And that's kind of the thing that I kind of harp on with these organizations is like, especially the UFC, is kind of like thinking to myself, Garrett Armfield goes into the UFC and he's still waiting tables and because he's in South Beach. So like South Beach has an expensive cost of living. He's winning fights, getting bonuses, still waiting tables because it's just not enough. And think to yourself is like, you know, a guy like Garrett or a guy like Evan Elder or some of these guys in the UFC, like how much better could they be if only they were doing fighting? If everything they were doing was just geared towards this, wouldn't it make for a better product? Wouldn't fighters be then better? Like how much better would you be if you didn't have to spend 8 hours a day, 9 to 5, and you could
I
just
think that comes back to supply and demand. You know, when you think about the amount, how saturated MMA is in the U.S. and how the supply and demand is so
Don't talk to the
lopsided.
promoters, dude.
Yeah.
We have 2 promotions here in the area, Shamrock and NFA, and they would tell you like it's so hard getting cards.
Yeah.
They use the same fighters over and over again.
Really?
Yeah, so when you're talking about saturation, perhaps that's like a problem with kickboxing and boxing and stuff like that. I can tell you right now,
It's definitely not the case with kickboxing and Muay Thai, but I think in terms of like what I should say is like the UFC. So like that's the pinnacle of MMA, right? UFC. Everybody's goal is to go into the UFC. So when you think of supply and demand for them, the fighter that the cream of the crop will rise on itself. They don't have to force that, you know what I mean? They don't have to give special privileges to pay for a fighter to get better because they see potential in them. It's like, if you're good, you'll rise. If you're not, then you're not. And
then I'd also make the argument right now that I think MMA has plateaued.
Yeah.
So like I don't think MMA has grown in the last 2 or 3 years. In fact, I think it's receded slightly. I just remember previous years where I felt like the UFC was like every year was more and more and more, and I thought like this was just going to keep going on forever, and it was going to be the number 1 sport. And for like the last 3 or 4 years, I've actually been like more interested in like a Jake Paul boxing match than I have been for some UFC fights.
Yeah,
That's
I think it's because it's new. I think UFC is consistently
no, I think
put on.
No, but I think it's okay. So we're gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
What you mean by new, I think is like a spectacle.
Yeah.
I think the problem with
entertaining.
I think the problem with the UFC is that you know, I want to be careful how I say this because I love watching fighting.
Yeah.
But like, I can't tune in to all the fights. Like, I don't have enough time. You know what I mean? And there's so much volume that it feels so homogenized that it's not as like big as like this big numbered UFC with like a title on it or whatever.
Right.
Or the big boxing matches. I think the boxing community still does it the right way by the marquee still owning like Terrence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. I'm going to watch that. I'm not even a boxer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like how many boxers are thinking that about a UFC card? That's what I would be interested in.
Yeah.
I'm not a boxer, but I'm interested in a boxing match. How many boxers are like, oh, UFC 317? Gonna watch that. How many of them don't even know what UFC 317 is?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, you're correct in terms of like the saturation, the volume and all that. But I also think that as long as an industry is growing, then a rising tide lifts all ships. So I don't know, man. I worry.
I think the UFC, they put shows on like what, every other weekend?
Yeah.
Or every weekend or
Pretty
something
much-
like that.
pretty much every
I think
weekend.
it's always available. So it's like watching your favorite show. You know what I mean? If you were to turn on the channel, it's there
But you
every
love
day.
fighting. You
Yeah.
love fighting. What I'm saying is like for the casual person.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, listen, if I'm walking down or I'm at a sports bar and they have like Cardinals, football, or boxing, well, you know where I'm going to look, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like for the casual fan, I don't think they even know that there's a UFC every weekend. Or at the fact if they do, they just don't care because they don't know the names or anything like that.
Right.
I think there needs to be kind of like this pullback of like, they got to the point where they got the
It's so
volume
available.
down. Well,
Yeah.
they got the volume down, but they're not promoting anybody. They're not building stars or anything like that, which I think boxing does really well. I'll tell you another one that does it really well. Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about how Chad's bringing in Lordzilla, and I think that's the fact that there's even like this Muay Thai guy with a name.
Yeah.
I think that's impressive. I just don't see like. Let me ask both of you guys, and this is with full acknowledgement that you're not MMA guys. Like, who's your idea of like a big UFC star
Right now?
right now?
Sean O'Malley probably right now.
Sean O'Malley, okay.
John Jones, but he just retired.
He just retired.
Yeah.
Okay. What if I told you that both of those guys receive like peanut numbers compared to Islam Makhachev? No. Like viewership and all that stuff. Like if you were to look on YouTube, like an Islam interview versus a Sean O'Malley interview,
yeah, but that's-
it's not
yeah.
even comparable.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because he has Russia.
Yeah, but this is kind of where I'm going with it. Is this like the culture there is kind of like where I was trying to get with like Lordzilla with Muay Thai and everything. Like the culture kind of backs sport in a way that America doesn't. America backs dollars. So like you thought Sugar Sean O'Malley because like that's the perception of like, oh, he's bringing in the money and he's the Sugar Show and all this other stuff. But I think that there's something more to it, and that's like what is the UFC facilitating?
I think there's a couple different variables you can look at that at because, like for instance, Canelo Alvarez, right?
Yes.
We're talking boxing.
Oh, Mexican boxing
You
too.
won't know half the people on the undercard, but you know Canelo, so you're gonna watch the card, right? Canelo fights twice.
Well, you're
a year.
buying it for the main event.
Yeah. Other than like 2 years ago when he cleared out the whole 68 division in 1 year, gathered all the belts. He fights twice a year, right? So he's not at your like grasp. You can't just tune in and see a Canelo fight. I think with the UFC, one, they do have very high level fighters, and a lot of the fights are competitive and like
the best fighters in the world. Let me say that.
Even like the stat cards when it's like all championship fights, those are all like banger of events. So it's like everyone looks forward towards that because they know the whole card's going to be.
This is my caveat. I agreed with everything you said until you said everyone. I agree. I don't think the fighters have ever been better. I don't think they've ever been more dangerous. I don't think the product has ever been better.
Yeah.
I think the fighters are the best they've ever been. But when you say everyone, let me put it to you this way. When I said this at lunch, but I'm going to repeat myself. When Conor McGregor was fighting,
Yeah.
like people that had no idea that's when that whole meme came out where like, oh, you fight UFC because they didn't know what MMA was,
Yeah.
So it's like
I hate that.
Yeah, it's all right. I look at it as a win personally. It's like a brand was synonymous. Imagine if I told you like you fight for glory, and I go, oh, you do Muay Thai. I didn't say you fight for glory. You do Muay Thai. Yeah, I guess like that. I do that or something like that. Whatever. I don't know. Or I guess it would be the opposite. Like, oh, you fight glory. You're like,
Yeah, but it'd be like going to a basketball player and be like, you play NBA? You know what I mean?
yeah, it does. When you say it like that, it does sound a little ignorant.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, well, I play for the NBA, but I'm a basketball player.
I guess what I'm trying to say is my dad, who was like 58-year-old immigrant, knew who Conor McGregor was.
Yeah.
And he doesn't watch any fighting. You know what I mean? So how did we go from that to I don't even know who's fighting.
Yeah, but icon. He's an icon. You know what I mean? Well, maybe not so much anymore, but
But hold up, Ronda was just as big.
Yeah.
Ronda was just as big, and I
Yeah.
would make the argument that before, like the Chuck Liddells and the Tito Ortiz, even though MMA was smaller, the names were larger.
Yeah,
The
star
names
power.
were larger. The star power was larger.
yeah.
It was MMA used to market themselves. The UFC used to market themselves in a similar fashion to boxing. Now it's just about the number. UFC 317.
So
It used to be Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz, and they'd call it like Showdown or whatever. But it was like a much bigger thing.
I think this is like an argument I always use, right? If we're talking Michael Jordan in the 90s, right? He's on everything, right? He's got the Nike contract. He's in all the commercials.
The hottest commodity.
People are paying a lot of money driving from different states to come to see him to play a game, right? And then they try to compare him to LeBron James, right? And so who's better, LeBron James, Michael Jordan? But when you, like, personally, when I think of LeBron James,
You're gonna open up an onion with this one.
yeah,
I'm kind of bunch of basketball heads.
but I'm kind of over it because like there's just so much of him everywhere because of like social media and all like everything we have that we can see him. Like I could see what he's doing every day of his life on his Instagram.
It's about LeBron now.
All the articles that come out about him and like you know what I mean. So it's like when you think about Michael Jordan in the 90s, there wasn't the internet, social media,
access to Michael
yeah, the
Jordan.
access to him. Yeah, so when you think about like his greatness, it's word of mouth, and he's like a movie star. You have no access to him, but if you want to see him, you got to be in Chicago, 5 p.m. this Sunday, watch his
Scarcity.
game, and then people flood because of the one chance they can see him, right? But if the 90s happened and we had social media and Michael Jordan's posting every day what he's doing, he's all over your feed. He's anywhere you look, you see him. He's on TV shows. He's on commercials. He's in the store. There's cutouts of him. Wouldn't you kind of get sick of him too?
Absolutely.
'Cause you
I
would see him
never
so
thought
much.
about it like this.
So like when you think of the UFC, they've branded and they've marketed so well that it's just like you see it every day. You just walk past it because you're used to seeing stuff about it. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean when I think of like the UFC and people are like, oh, yeah, I don't know who's fighting. Yeah, I don't know who's fighting on 317 either, but I know the big UFC 317's coming this weekend.
So let me. I'm going to piggyback off of that. One, I never thought about it that way. You're absolutely correct. It is the scarcity. It's like, when will you see Michael Jordan, so to speak, versus like a LeBron James? And you're absolutely right because they make themselves more available.
Yeah.
I think that is something to be said because of course when I started watching UFC back in like 2011, MySpace was like the hippest thing, and Facebook was just like new.
If you think about MySpace for a second, right?
It was the best social media.
Who's your first friend on MySpace?
Tom.
Exactly.
That's all Tom wanted to be was my friend. He didn't want to sell my data.
But that's what I'm
He didn't want to
saying.
sell me an algorithm.
He was everybody's first friend on MySpace, so everybody knows Tom. If I showed you the picture,
Well, you're a boom.
Shut
What
the
are you?
fuck
What generation
up.
are you? We're millennials, right? When
Yeah.
were you born?
94.
94. I'm 92, so I'm slightly older than you. You're what year? Oh, Jesus.
2006.
You don't even remember 9/11.
Jeez, yeah.
No, I agree. Like, I think that has a point to play. So then, but the caveat to that too is I think the nature in which the UFC markets has changed. It used to be Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz,
Yeah.
GSP, John Jones. Now it's UFC
Rising
Apex,
stars. Yeah.
Dana White's Contender Series.
Yeah.
The nature of it has changed, and I think the reason they did that is because once Connor came in, they realized like, oh shit, like we can't put all our chips in this basket. It helped propel it's ironic because it helped propel the sport to new heights.
Anytime something gets popular, other brands are going to break off. It's just like your favorite movie. You know what I mean? Your favorite movie, everybody's talking about it, right? What do? They come out with the second one. It's not as good, but it still makes you appreciate the series, right? And then they make a TV show off of it, right?
Yeah.
And then the TV show, it starts out good, and then it kind of slows down, but like you're still holding on for the hope. Not that the UFC is at that point, but in terms of like, it's just access to that product. It's just,
Maybe it's also me.
yeah.
That's the other thing. The other element here is it's the human element. I'm biased. Maybe I'm like pearl clutching to the good old days.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I think my thing is I don't really watch UFC. Like if one of the STL guys are fighting, for sure I'm going to tune in, right? If it's like a big card, sure if my friends have it on, I'm going to watch it. You know what I mean? But am I like looking forward to a UFC every weekend? Probably not so much. You know, I primarily watch like boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, one championship, stuff like that.
How much are you looking forward to the Canelo Crawford fight?
I'm kind of looking forward. I'm looking forward to it in the sense of like the competitiveness, but it's
You grinned.
yeah, I'm not into it as much as like I guess the general public is.
Why not? Out of curiosity.
I don't know. I think it's because I love both of those fighters so much.
Oh.
You know what I mean? That I'm like, God, I hate to see
How can
them.
they both win?
Yeah, exactly. Can you guys just tie? Yeah, but no, but I think that's honestly what it is. But I mean, I do love the competitiveness of it. I do think it's gonna be a great fight. I see both sides. I see all the Canelo people being like, Canelo's for sure gonna win because of ABC, and then I see everyone on Terrence's side like he's gonna win because of XYZ, and you're tripping if you think otherwise.
What do you think though? What do you think?
Personally, I got Canelo. I think he's just used to fighting bigger, stronger guys. I think Terrence does have like amazing ring IQ, and I do think he has the opportunity to pull it off. But I just
everybody
Canelo
at that level too is dangerous, and that's where we have to caveat.
Yeah. The fight could change at any moment. But
what do you think
Canelo,
percentage wise? Like if you were to give, it's a pie chart,
I'd
right?
give it 50-40.
60-40.
Yeah.
I would be around there as well. I think that Crawford could easily win it, and that's what I think makes it such an enticing and exciting fight. Also, the fact that Crawford's bumping up. Also, the fact that, two big superstars in the sport.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you call boxing a sport or a fighting style. I guess it's a sport.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the sport of fighting, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know. I always looked at, I always thought like people, I don't look at boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA. I just don't look at it the same way I look at football. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because the entire premise is completely different. I'm not trying to score points. I'm trying to knock your head off.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah.
it's a little different to me. I don't know if I call that a sport or as much as I call it fighting. Anyway,
it's that
forgive
big
me.
phrase in boxing. You don't play boxing, but it's like you don't play MMA. You don't play kickboxing. Yeah, so I guess you're right.
That brings up a good point. Like so for me with MMA, when I was done with it, right now I'm kind of finding an affinity back to the grappling aspects because it's not necessarily super traumatic on my head, right? I'm not getting hit anymore, or at least not the way I was. You're in like a striking martial art though, and not that I'm saying that your time is over. Far from.
Right.
That's one of the things we're going to talk about. Like, is your career and how it's blossoming. But one of the things I am curious of is like when it's done for you. Let's say you're 40, 41. Do you think you're still going to be in the gym sparring? Do you think you're still going to be like, because your sport is kind of tougher to do in older age?
To be honest, I've never even thought about retirement once.
You're going to do it until the wheels come off?
Not yet. Yeah, only because.
Well, okay, let me change it then. Not necessarily retirement from fighting, but like you're 45. Are you still sparring?
Probably not. Maybe some cardio rounds, movement or like striking.
Doesn't that fucking suck though, dude?
No, because at 45, am I going to be able to do what I can do right now at the same pace? No.
Yeah, but I also don't want to like. It's one of the things I think about because like I'm not really training actively right now. I'm coaching high school wrestling, but like I'm not really training. And I think to myself like, oh, I want to go back in. And then the very first thing I think about going back in is like, for what? Like, what am I gonna do? Hard rounds because I'm not fighting anymore. So like, what am I gonna do? Be somebody's punching bag? Yeah. And then I don't want to come in and do a cardio kickboxing class.
Yeah.
Like for
me,
no,
I won't. I'm not doing cardio kickboxing. I'll say that. I'll probably still.
1, 2. I can see you, Drew.
God, no.
Get that burn, baby.
No, yeah, not
saying that cardio kickboxing is bad.
Right.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
If I was a soccer mom, it'd be right up there.
I mean, I might still spar. I really don't. Like I said, I haven't even thought about it, so I don't know. We'll see.
You know what I was thinking about? Opening up a gym exclusively for like 40-year-olds up. Like when I hit 40, I'm gonna open up a gym. I'm like only just for the old heads.
That would actually be really.
So like at least if we're gonna do head trauma, like everyone here has CTE. Like we're fine.
Equal. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like whatever.
Level the playing field.
We're just adding miles to a broken car at this point.
Well, it's TRT already.
Yeah. That's
the other problem. Is just like, well, okay, how about that? Introduce that argument. It's like, at what point, like when I'm 60 or 70, if they like introduce some sort of like hormone or some sort of like peptide, it's like, hey, you want to feel 30 again? Then guess what I'm doing? I'm going right back in there. Let's go, boys.
I was saying that's ready now.
No, come on. It's not like how many 60-year-olds are you seeing? Drew, let me give you a round, Drew.
But okay, that is true. But I think in today's age, TRT, peptides, and that kind of stuff is being
hormone replacement therapies.
Yeah, so popular that I think when we're 60, that's going to be.
Isn't that still considered cheating though? For like
a club fitness is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
No, I don't do that's a good question.
I don't do commercial gyms either, but yeah.
I don't go to like lifting gyms. I tried. I signed up for Club Fitness for a month. Mm-hmm. I got like some headphones because I'm like I'm gonna listen to music or whatever. I went there. And I'm not lying to you. I started lifting, and I thought to myself, "What the fuck am I lifting this for?" Like, I didn't realize this about myself, but like, fighting was always like a good goal
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm going to run this mile because I need to get in shape for this fight. I'm going to go lift this weight because I need to be stronger for this fight.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to this round because I need to sharpen the tools for this fight. When I no longer had for this fight, I don't have that itch.
Yeah, you have no motivation.
Yeah. And like some
there's
people
no
are like,
goal.
well, don't you love fighting? I'm like, yeah, but now I have that like in other things. So like instead of going to the gym, you want to know what I do? I'll read up on the market because I'm going to tackle the stock market on Monday on open. Like I have other things now that I
You
have goals
a separate
for.
passion. Yeah, you have goal motivation. I always, that's the number one thing people always say, like, oh, I hate working out. It's like, personally, I love working out.
I love working
You know
out.
what I mean? I think it's great on so many different levels. And people are like, well, I just go then, I don't know what to do. I'm like, you have one, no plan. You have no goal, short term, long term.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you haven't outlined any exercise that you want to do to like advance to your goal because there's not one set. So it's like you have to do all those things in order to enjoy working out because then you feel like you're accomplishing something or you're checking off the box for the day.
Do you think that's what you have with fighting? Because I asked you earlier that, like, you know, is this like, obviously it's a passion of yours. You love it, but you want to be best in the world. Do you think you'd still be fighting if you weren't chasing best in the world?
No, I don't because
What's the point?
there's no goal. You know what I mean? So it's like me, I train year round, and it's like because it's like I want to get better. The only way you can get better is if you stay in the gym. Like all the sessions just add up, and you build more muscle memory. You're learning new techniques. Things just become more fluent. When you take those breaks, you know what I mean? It's kind of like you're restarting. You have to like brush up. Like, what was I doing again? You got to brush up and get back to a baseline so you can advance from there. It's like if you just stay in the gym, it just becomes habit and you're just constantly building. It's just like small victories. So
Drew Gigax, stay ready. Stay ready. And the guy, get ready.
yeah,
Hashtag real one.
yeah,
We were talking earlier about the trajectory of your career and how it's really blossoming right now. So we were talking briefly about like age and stuff like that. And not that I was saying that you were anywhere near retirement, but
Yeah.
in fact, you're the opposite. A lot of people say that between 28 and 32 is the athletic prime for fighting. And you're right there smack dab in the middle, right? You're what, 31 now? Yeah. 94, baby. Sorry. Earlier in the conversation, I talked about how you had like a pretty busy schedule and how you try to fight pretty regularly. What is the schedule like now? What is on your plate? What's on the horizon? Like, what are you striving for in the short term, 6 months from now?
6 months from now, I have a lot of things in the works, but I don't really like to talk about them until, you know what I mean, I sign a contract and the date is set. But right now I do have a couple fights lined up throughout the year that are really, really big fights.
Is it hard for you to find fights?
No, I think in the beginning when I was turning pro, it was hard to find fights because you haven't really built anything. I think the more that you fight and advance in your career, the fights more come to you. I remember when I was an early pro, 2, 3 fights in the game. The second I would win a fight, the next day I would message every promotion I could possibly find, and whether it be local, across the U.S., I'm filling out fighter registrations for promotions for them to contact me, putting my email down for everything, following their pages to see when they have shows. If we get near the show date, I'll message them, see if I can jump on them.
Like, what, as like a late replacement?
Not as a late replacement, but like for instance, if I see they have a show in like 8 weeks, I'll try to message them about hopping on the show and performing because it is hard to find fights as an early pro. Even now, it can be difficult at times, but I'm in a good position right now where fights are approaching me more so than me having to go after them. So I would say just, the more you advance in your career, the more doors open up, obviously.
See, I had the exact inverse relationship. When I was an early pro, it was so easy. I had like 3 or 4 guys that were willing to fight me. And then near like the end of my career, I mean, it was like pulling fucking teeth, dude. And the negotiations were what irritated me the most. When I was an amateur, you could fight. Hell, I did fight like 2 times in a month. You know what I mean? But then when you go pro, it's like this date and this money and this promotion. We don't want to fight for these people. We don't want to fight then. It's just like, God damn, like, I just want to fucking fight, dude. And it's like, then you're like, well, do you want to fight this guy who's like a 500 fighter? You're like, not really. But if I don't fight this guy, then I'm going to go like a year layoff. It was actually one of the things that was driving me crazy was the trajectory of my career, like near the later half of it, because it was like, I went from fighting 3 times a year to fighting 2 times a year fighting one time a year to fighting one time every 2 years. And I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, so I've ran into situations like that as well, where the more you fight, the more you just want to fight the next best guy, and like
you want to climb.
I would get offers for guys that have maybe not as many fights as me or not as great of a record at the time, and I would deny it, and I'd be like, nah, I don't want that fight. I want a harder fight. And then I realized the more you advance, you still need those intermediate fights in between. That way you can build on things that you're working on, because when you're fighting the best guys at high level, you don't have room to make mistakes, and when you do make the mistake, you pay for it. And so I've learned that, it is good sometimes to take those intermediate fights. That way you can do things in real time of a fight that you've been working on in the gym. That way you're ready for the next big fight. So
I agree with you, and it was a mistake that I made in my career.
Yeah.
And hearing you say
something
that,
you learn over time.
It frustrates me to hear that now, because I'm like, dude, you're not wrong. I wish I would have. I would have had more fights had I been like, yeah, sure, I'll fight that guy. Whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares?
But not only that, but I just think it just is overall really good for your career. I mean, one thing I always try to tell amateur fighters, they'll get on a hot streak and win like 5-6 fights in a row, and they're like, I'm ready to turn pro. And I'm like,
in kickboxing or MMA? Sorry,
it's just in general.
Okay.
I think especially in a sport where you have more like martial arts you have to learn. You know what I mean? So like, especially, I mean, kickboxing in itself, I mean, you got to have a lot of fights, because there are different fighting styles. It's not just punching and kicking. Like, a lot of people think it's just punching and kicking, but you know what I mean? You got to see every style. You got to get knocked down. You got to get back up. You got to see how you react when, they're kicking your butt, and you got to fight back. There's just a lot of things in fighting that I feel like people think they see generally in a span of like 6 or 7 fights. But not only that, me and my coach talk about it. I showed up to his gym as a pro. I was like 2-0 as a pro. I knew nothing about weight cutting. I knew nothing about strength and conditioning.
Oh, wow.
I knew nothing about dieting, tracking macros, counting calories, none of that. Never structure of a camp. It was just train every day, never take days off, redline your body 4 days a week. You know what I mean? For as much as you can, because like that's working hard. You know what I mean? But you don't know.
Well,
any
it definitely
of that.
feels like an old school mentality.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't learn any of that if, one, you're not being taught, or two, you don't take enough fights to build a system that works for your body. And so fighters that have short amateur careers and go straight to pro, I feel like is a detriment when we start to hit that higher level.
Why do you think it is? Because I noticed this as well. I remember when I was an amateur, the idea to go pro was like, did I clear out the division? Like, is there no one else for me to fight? Like, for me, when I went pro, I won the 135-pound belt for Shamrock. I won the 135-pound, then I won the 145-pound belt for Shamrock. I bumped up because, like, there was no 135ers to fight. And then I won the 145-pound belt for Fight Hard, and I was like, all right, like, beat everybody, might as well go pro now. Like, I kind of cleaned out the promotions and the divisions, right? Then I went pro. Now I'm seeing guys are like, oh, I'm 5-1, time to go pro. And I think to myself, where I was when I was 6-0 as an amateur, I wasn't ready. Yeah. I was not ready.
But also that falls into the conversation of saturation of the sport. Like, when you were fighting, like the promotion opportunities were more so, I feel like, regional, you know what I mean? And like, for you to get a call for like a fight in like New York as like an amateur, it is not
non-existent.
Exactly. But now it's like, there's so many MMA promotions across the U.S. That are like local regional promotions that they could call you over there, and all you have to do is take like a 4-hour drive. And next thing you know, you're fighting in Kansas City, or you're fighting down in Miami, or now they're doing tournaments everywhere. And so I feel like it's been so like popular for MMA or in kickboxing, Muay Thai in general, that it's easier to get those kind of fights now. And so I feel like with the more saturation you have, you should take more fights, because you can see different styles of fight, especially in MMA.
No, I agree with you 100%. But I guess my thing is like, do you notice that guys are trying to go pro earlier and earlier now? Yeah. And whenever I ask them, the common thread usually is like, well, I want to get paid. I want to get paid for this. And talking about earlier in our conversation, like, dude, there's not much money in fighting, guys.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing, is like, if you're doing this out of passion, if you're doing this to like become the best in the world, then that makes sense to me. That pro record's forever. So it's like, then it becomes the point of like, is this conducive to the overall goal of being the best in the world, quote unquote, chasing money right now? Or what, 300 and 300? And I don't want to sound obtuse or like a douche. Like, I get it that for some people that's a lot of money. Yeah. So I do want to take a step back and acknowledge that, like, everybody's fiscal plane is different. So for some people, that might be the difference of like paying the mortgage or the rent or whatever.
Yeah.
So I do want to acknowledge that I am sounding like pretty douchey right now. But I do want to also say that like when I was
Sole
pursuing
dependence.
that,
Yeah.
I was solely doing what I thought was best for my career. Never once did I think like, oh, I need this $100, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, is this good for my career? Should I do one more? All right, let's do this one more because I want to build this from this fight or whatever. And I just feel like maybe some of that is lost in the sauce with some of these younger fighters trying to go pro sooner and sooner now. I'm just like, okay, well, once you go pro, like we were saying earlier, this record's forever.
I think a lot of people see it on TV and they're like, I could do that or I want that.
Oh,
and
that
then
too.
you know what I mean? Then it's like not necessarily it's no more about being an amateur, it's about being pro and doing and seeing what you see on TV. So
Which is
I think it
crazy
really
because you have
depends.
amateur fighters now that would mop the floor with pro fighters
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that like these amateurs aren't pro level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that like if the whole point of an amateur career is to help grow and facilitate so that you can learn things like nutrition, how to properly cut weight and stuff like that in this environment where as soon as you go pro, it's kind of like, okay, well, all this was good practice. Now it's time to set it straight. That's what I think it should be used for. And I'm not saying that there's some people that don't get it.
Yeah, there's outliers to anything.
There's
So
out, yeah,
there's
but
people that take one
but the
pro
exception
fight.
does not make the rule,
Yeah.
and that's my two
I think an
cents.
amateur career should be used to one, refine your skills, hone them in, but two, learn the weight cutting, learn the diet management, learn the strength and
Learn how to be
conditioning.
coached
Yeah.
and cornered.
Oh yeah, learn how to be coached. Yeah, and there's just so many aspects in fighting that.
When did you
have to
decide to go
tackle.
pro? Like, what was the switch? How many fights did you have?
I was 18-2 as an amateur.
Okay,
I think I had 13 knockouts.
why not go pro 19-2? Or why not? Why didn't you go pro 17-2? Why 18-2?
Sure. So I fought. So at 18, I'm trying to think back because I think that was like 2019.
Dude, COVID's weird, isn't it? How like 2 or 3
Yeah, I
years
think it was
escapes
before
us.
COVID. I know that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, like 2017, 2018. But I remember I turned pro because it was impossible to find amateur fights anymore. And at that point, I realized, you know, I'm passionate. I believed in myself that I could do it at a pro level. I know I have the dedication to do it. I know I have the drive to do it. I know I have that consumer mind where I'm watching everything and trying to like take something from it. You know what I mean? And so I just felt like I had the passion for it to where I could excel in the pro ranks. And so that's why I turned pro. I think getting paid was a benefit, especially, but I think it's always been about passion for me.
So was it a reflection of like this is becoming so difficult to find fights? Might as well just go pro.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily that a switch was flipped. It was kind of flipped for you. You're like, what the
Yeah.
fuck am I doing?
Yeah. I was going like 3-4 months without a fight, sometimes 6. And I was like,
This is too much.
I can't stay amateur my whole life because, you know what I mean? I want to do something with this. So I was like,
You don't want to be the
"Alright,
best in the
that's
world amateur. You want to be the best in the world
it."
pro.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, time to make that step. And then
When you had that discussion with your corner and your coaches and everything, how'd that one go? Did everyone basically say, yeah, of course?
yeah, they were all on the same path. So at the time I was with a different gym. I was under Jermaine Andre, and we had the conversation. I remember it going. He was like, "You want to turn pro, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he was like, "You think you beat so and so?" Just dropping different names, and I was like, "Yeah, I believe I can." And then he was like, so funny. I remember this to this day. He was like, "You want to turn pro? And you think you can fight pro? You're gonna fight Daryl tonight." And Daryl at the time was on a tear.
Daryl Cobb.
Yes, Daryl Cobb. He was on a tear, and I remember I had to spar Daryl. No shin guard, gloves only, and he was like, "Let's see what you got." Oh man, he tore me up. You know what I mean? I think I was like 18, 19 at the time. He just put it on me, and I got back in my car, and I remember, you know what I mean? It was a quiet drive home, and I was just thinking, I was like, "Damn, that was bad." And I was thinking, I still want this. You know what I mean? So I was like, I'm gonna come back tomorrow, and I'm gonna get better, and that's it. And then I think from there on, he saw that I was serious, and you know, we turned pro after that. So
Gotcha. So maybe it was, well, also, in your defense, being like, hey, Daryl Cobb, come in here. It's a pretty fucking, you're not going to face someone like that your pro debut. And that's actually some of the things that I tell the amateur fighters whenever I like mentored them was like, you know, once you get to the point where you're like 8, 9, 10 and 0 in MMA, that's actually a lot of fights as an amateur.
yeah.
And then I always say like, at this point now, 9 and 0, 10 and 0, or 9 and 1 in MMA, the fighter that you're going to fight on the amateur level will actually be better than your pro debut fighter. Because the pro debut fighter could be 0-0, 0-1. You know what I mean?
You don't know the background.
Yeah, you don't really know the background, but I guarantee you it's not going to be the next up and coming killer. Because once you get to like 8-1, 8-0 MMA, guess what? You're fighting other 8-0, 8-1 MMA. Which then the argument could be made like better to fight that guy as an amateur. So whatever happens, happens. And if you do lose,
you learn something.
You learned, you gain that knowledge, but it's also not permanently on your record. And that's the thing that sucks, is our records are our resumes.
Yeah.
Which is weird about fighting, because I feel like other fighters, like, let me put it to you this way. When I watch fighting, I don't think about the records. I think, ooh, that guy's cold, or that guy knows what he's doing, or this.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck who wins or loses, because like I can see the skill set and I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
But it feels so weird to see like the general populace put so much emphasis.
It's the triangle theory.
What is the triangle theory? Sorry.
You never heard triangle theory?
No.
So, okay, for instance, like, you fight me, you beat me, right? I fight him, but I beat him. And then now you guys are gonna fight, and then it's like,
he beats me. So
it's like, well, he lost to him, but he beat him, so he should then beat him. You know what I mean? So people always do the triangle theory, but it's like styles make fights. You know what I mean?
Nights make fights. I mean, I don't know what you got going into that fight.
Exactly.
Did you just have a kid? Are you battling a staph infection? Like, I have no fucking clue.
Exactly. And styles make fights, man. You go in there, you could think one way, but if you have two clashing styles that, you know, one benefits more than the other, it's so interesting. So I tell a lot of people, they're like, well, who do you think's gonna win in those fights? It's like, really, it's any man's game that night. But, you know, if I were to take a generalization, you know what I mean, I would say, you know, a fighter or whatever. So
do you think that when all is said and done, you'll ever take any sort of interest in coaching or mentoring or managing or anything like that? Like, would you, when you're no longer competing, do you think you still want to be around it?
I if my kids are involved, yes. Just because I know how much time it takes to prepare for fights and how much time you have to invest into something to see like an outcome that you want. And so it's like, I can only do that if I'm invested in the person as much as I am, that I'm going to invest my time into them. So it's like, if my son is interested in fighting, I don't know if I want him to take the fight path, but, you know, if he wants to take a couple amateur fights, then yeah, you know what I mean? We're gonna make it happen.
Why not?
You know
We were talking earlier about how you're like, so you don't want them to take the fight path. So you're like me. Be a dentist.
Yeah. No, because one, I know there's not a lot of money in fighting, so it's like I would hate for them to dedicate their life to something where, you know, it may or not work out. But at the same time, it's like I'm also teaching my kids that, like, believe in yourself. Like, if you believe you can do something, do it. You know what I mean? So I don't want to be like how parents in the past have been, where be realistic, set a realistic expectation. It's like I'm going to believe in my kid as much as they want to believe in themselves. Like, if my son wants to be, you know, an astronaut, be the first one to fly to Jupiter or whatever, I'd be like, that's your goal and you're passionate about it and you're putting the effort in to do that, I'm going to believe in you 100%.
You don't worry about the financials?
I mean, I do and I don't, because, I mean, where I had my daughter at 21, I believe, and I just dropped out of college.
Were you married?
I wasn't married, but
did you end up marrying the woman?
Yeah, I ended up marrying. Yeah,
made an honest woman out of her. Good job, Joe.
Yeah. Oh man, she's the best. I've known her since I was like 13. So, but yeah, I was working at like Bob Evans. I just dropped out of college.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
What is Bob Evans?
Bob Evans, the restaurant.
I've never been.
I've
never
Oh
been.
man, do you like Southern cooking?
I like all food. I like all food. I've just never been to Bob Evans. Forgive me.
It's amazing.
Okay,
But anyways, dude, it was a dead end job. I just dropped out of college. I was not.
What were you
passionate
studying
about
in
it.
college? What were you doing
Business.
in college? Okay.
Yeah.
Just like a generic business degree?
Yeah, business administration.
Oh, God.
Your typical degree you go to college for that you have no
You want to know what
path
he
set.
told me like
What?
a year ago? He's like, I'm going to go to college. I go, yeah, sure. What do you want to go? He goes, business administration. And then I felt bad because I feel like I shot him in the foot with this one. I go,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Administer business? The fuck does that mean?
Shot him in his boots.
Yeah, his nice cowboy boots. Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna get a business administration degree. I go, dude, that to me, whenever I think of biz ad, I think the same thing as like, oh, you're gonna get a psych degree. Congratulations, you're gonna be useless in society.
Yeah, it's like getting your.
You dropped out of college, but I hate to say it this way. Like, even if you would have graduated,
Exactly. So So when we're talking about, am I worried about the finances of the future for fighting? No, because I was in a terrible position that I was at, and I figured it out. You know what I mean? Especially, I think having kids young forces you to figure stuff out,
Dude.
because you now have to provide. You know what I mean? And you don't want to be at the bottom of the barrel
Forces
suffering.
responsibility on you.
Yeah, so you have to figure it out, and so I believe they'll figure it out just like I did. You know, so am I worried about them? No. Do I want to be there, be in a position where I can help them when they need me? Yes. You know what I mean? So. Do I want my son to fight? No, because I don't want him to go in that path. But if he wants to fight and he's passionate about it, I'm going to be there 100%. I'm going to do as much as I can to help him with his career, especially now that I've been in the fight game. I know how it works. I've made connections. I know who I could reach out to. Then so be it. But
Ooh, you know what? That's funny that you say that. I've never thought about that either. The
Yeah.
connections. You're absolutely right. Network matters.
yeah,
So if my daughter ever did want to go, she would not. I always think to myself,
wouldn't have the
like,
same path as you.
she wouldn't. She'd have it slightly easier. I know what coaches you need to go to. This person's going to help you because this, that, or the other.
I mean, how many great fighters that you know of have talked about their parent before them being a fighter, and then their dad helped them with their career? It's just like, because that's just what happens. You know what I mean? You go down your own path. You figure it all out on your own. The next generation comes, and you build the path for them, and then that's it.
Now, flip side. What if they want nothing to do with fighting?
Completely fine with that too.
Yeah.
No problem at all with that.
My daughter,
But
my
am I-
daughter's going to know how to do at least some grappling.
I was gonna say, but am I gonna teach my kids how to defend themselves?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I'm going to make it mandatory.
Yeah.
I just don't want to like. I think it's easy for kids to fall in love with something they're good at. So I want proficiency out of them. So it's like I want them to learn martial arts to be able to defend themselves. But if that subsequently also like gets them to fall in love with martial arts, which I'm being honest when I say I don't want them
Yeah.
to go to that. I feel like I'm kind of like shooting myself in the foot. It's like, well, what if this leads to that? But
And just oversaturate it. Just
Yeah.
force them to do every tournament every weekend.
Oh,
them
and just
5
fucking
a.m. in
hate
the
it.
Summer. Yeah, make them hate it, and then
it
they'll
didn't
be
work
over
though
it.
because
Yeah.
Rodrigo Vaghi did that with his son and was like trying to get his son to like lose or whatever to like spur him to train more, and his son like barely trains and wins.
Yeah.
And it was funny that he told me that story. I was like, okay, so inverse relationship, dude. I'm the more I get older, you're twice the father I am by definition. You have 2 kids. I only have one, and they're much older than I am, or than my daughter is. I always feel like I have a plan in every aspect of life. But when it comes to fatherhood, I'm like, dude, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
it.
I just every day is just like, all right, what are we gonna do today? You know, what I mean?
Yeah.
let's just not yell too much. You know?
Yeah, yeah. How old's your daughter?
2.5.
Okay, yeah. So,
So
you're in the
I'm in the phase where like if I try to discipline her, she just cries.
Yeah.
Like there's no disciplining a 2.5-year-old girl. It's just kind of like, oh, you shit your pants without a diaper. I guess I'll
Yeah.
clean it up. Like
Okay.
what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Talking
yeah.
through
You're just
this.
making it day by day at that age. for
Yes,
sure.
because like we're getting into this phase now where like she's wearing these like underwears that are like supposed to get her ready to body train, but guess who never got that memo?
Yeah,
She's like,
yeah.
oh, okay, great. And I'm just
Exactly.
like, great. I would rather just stuck with the diaper.
That's so funny. I remember those days. It's crazy.
Do you ever want more? Because you had kids young.
Snipped.
Isn't it reversal?
I don't
It's
know.
reversible.
I don't know if it.
Yeah,
they do it a new
vasectomies are
way.
reversible.
Oh man, I don't know if I want that. So definitely not.
No, two and done.
2 and done. That's it. Got a boy and a girl. We got everything set. And I think about like everything we've done with our kids to this date. You know what I mean? Like the vacations and like we checked off
a
the Disney
newborn
stuff.
now would be rough.
I would have to give that kid the same childhood that I've given the first 2, and that sounds
the
expensive.
standard has
And
been set.
Yeah, I can't do that. So I can't do that. So we were like, let's call it.
What does your wife think about all this? Like the fighting and all. Obviously, she's.
Dude, I've known my wife since I was 13, and she has been like the most supportive person in my life for everything. And so I've agreed with like the phrase that you always want to be with somebody who supports you more than you sometimes support yourself, because like I believe in myself, and like but like this sport it's
Demanding.
demands everything from you, and the price changes every day. You know what I mean? And so having somebody that I live with to constantly like push myself, like you got it, is no problem. And I remember like when we were dating, I don't skip the gym for anything. You know what I mean? And so like that was our one rule of dating. We're like, just just don't ask me to skip the gym. It would be cool. And she's never asked me to skip once. So
God bless.
yeah, and so she's supportive of me, and she knows like how passionate I am about it and how serious I am about it. And I mean, it keeps me in shape at my age, sets a good role model for my kids, and like she enjoys going to fights, and we travel, the world together because of fighting. So You know what I mean? Like extended
It
weekends.
does have its perks. It does
Exactly.
have its perks.
So, and it's just, I mean, we built a lot of great memories around fighting. And so, she's super supportive of me, and I couldn't ask for anything more.
Does she train at all, out of curiosity, or no?
Nope. Nope. Works out, walks 5 days a week, and works out all the time and eats right. So I'm lucky in that sense, but she's self-motivated as well. So I think a lot of it just comes back to like, we enjoy working out, but like we don't work out together. Like even when we went to a commercial gym, we did our own thing and then we left. You know what I mean?
Different intensity. When me and my wife, when she was my girlfriend, she started hitting up a 9 rounds, like cardio kickboxing. I remember I was the asshole. She came home and she's like, "Look, I got these gloves," and like these like 9-round boxing gloves that they sell them for like $40 had like the shittiest padding, and I was like, "You can't." And I'm sitting here like over analyzing, like, "You can't use this. Like, you're gonna hurt your knuckles with it." She's like, "I felt fine with me," and then I realized, I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's because you're like tap punching." Like
exactly.
I had to take a step back, and I was like, "You know what? Have fun, babe. I'm glad you're doing your thing. Like, I do not need to be anywhere around this, or I'm gonna over critique everything."
That's my thing. Is like, it's so funny you say that, because like, if it's anything and somebody's saying something even that I know it's wrong, I don't care. I'm like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? But like when it comes to fighting and they say something, I'm like, God, it makes me just want to crack you.
Dude, you're such a better man than I can't not do that.
Yeah.
So like, you just say nothing.
No, I don't say anything. I for real, I'm like, I keep to myself about everything.
That's one of the things I was gonna ask you, because like, so I know you're a cold, like, one of the precursors for being on the podcast is like the actually I would say the only precursor is like whether I want to talk to you, because like we get a lot of people that want to come on and everybody has a story and I think everybody's interesting, but the tough part for people to understand is like, hey, like I have to be passionate about that conversation.
Yeah.
So when Adrian was like, we should have Drew on right away, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, we should. And she's like, oh, you know Drew? I go, I don't know anything about Drew. I've never talked to Drew. I know that Drew's a fucking stone cold killer though, because I've seen some of your fights. So I was like, yeah, I'm interested in talking to him. But one of the things I'll say about you is, dude, you are under the radar.
Yeah.
Now, can I ask you this? Are you under the radar on purpose, or are you under the radar just by proxy of how you normally act?
Proxy of how I act,
Okay.
for sure. I think it's one of me having a very busy schedule between just like my home life and like the training routine I've set up for myself. Because I remember when I first turned pro, I used to watch the Yokow team train, and they would say it has to be 6 days a week, 2 to 3 times a day, and I'd live my life by that. That like if I want to be a pro like the greatest, I need to live my life like that too. Which luckily I have a job where I can work from home, where I can wake up, run, bag work, strength conditioning in the afternoon, go to the gym at night, and I see my kids because I'm at home. I see them all day, even during school. They come home. In the morning, I make breakfast for them, get them on the bus. I see them when they get off the bus. Then I go to the gym at night. When I'm hanging out with them, half the time I bring my son with me to the gym. So it's like I'm with my family 24/7. So it gives me it relieves that pressure of being like, I guess, the ability to do what I want without feeling guilty.
Yeah. Because if you had a 9 to 5 when you were in an office,
yeah, because I used to have an
and then have
office
to go to the
job
gym,
where I would have to wake up at 5, run, work out. Then I would have to come home at 6, shower, drive to the office an hour and 10 minutes because of where I lived compared to where my work was. I would work 8 hours. I would drive an hour home. My daughter was like 1 at the time. I would go straight to her room, hang out with her for an hour, give her all the time I can. And then I would go to the gym at night and I come home at 10:30. And I was doing that for a couple of years. And I was just like, I felt so guilty as like a partner, as a father. Just because I never had time for like the people that really care in my life. But at the same time, I'm chasing something I'm super passionate about. You know what I mean? So I forgot what the initial question was.
No, I was going to get to the question, but I like that point. I guess my question for you is, how much has remote work changed your life?
Oh yeah, drastically. I didn't really see the difference because, I'm going to make it happen no matter what. You know what I mean? So instead of having to wake up at 5 a.m. now to get stuff done, which I still do every now and then, but I can work a little, go do what I need to do, come back, work, do my second workout, work, and then go to the gym at night. And then, summertime, hang out with my kids all day while I'm working, which just works out. So.
Do you know what I think remote work has taught all of us?
Work-life balance.
Well, not just that, but no one works 40 hours a week.
Right.
No one does. Like we say we do, but like I think there's 2 boats. I think there are the people that don't work 40 hours a week, and then I think there's the people that work 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I don't really find like an in-between.
Yeah.
And one of the nice things about COVID, it had, honestly, when I think back about COVID, like Were there a lot of things that were shitty about it? Absolutely. But I do think to myself too, like, man, my life changed because of it. It
Yeah.
kind of forced me to. Like, so in a lot of ways, I have kind of like this reverence for that time because it's like that's where I really found myself because I couldn't go anywhere. I had to face my demons. I had to really like look within
Yeah.
myself and change my life. But had I gone like I was done with fighting shortly after COVID was done. You know what I mean? And I and one of the big reasons why I kind of decided like I need to cut back on this and I need to cut back on that was because my wife did get pregnant and everything. And I thought to myself like, dude, I can't go into the office and then do this and like I don't have enough time. And you were talking about the guilt. I felt
Yeah.
that shit too. Now for me, the pill was a little easier to swallow because I did have a fight that kind of opened my eyes to never being the best in the world. But man, just I wonder how much that helps fighters now. Not necessarily the fighters that, you know, if they're not married and all that stuff, it doesn't affect them. But like the fighters like in your position where they are married or they possibly have kids, or if they're not married, they're co-parenting properly or what have you.
Yeah.
I just think that remote work is such a value add to not just fighters, but everyone. Like if you're doing white collar work, why do we need to be in an office?
Yeah. Oh, so that's interesting you say that, and I will say a couple things about that. One, when we talk about lessons we've learned from fighting, right? I feel like, I mean, granted, I grew up with two very strict parents who have very hard work ethics, so I did learn that growing up. But fighting taught me like a different level of like mindset and working out and pushing past your limits, right? And so I know I can apply that to other aspects of my life, right? So me working a job, I know if I'm at home and I have stuff to do that even if I don't feel like doing it, I know I can lock in and get the job done, right? I feel like a lot of people who don't face a lot of adversity in their life, sometimes the smaller things become bigger because their bar is a little bit lower for, you know, things that they've dealt with, that like they don't have that dedication or the mindset to, you know, oh, I'm just going to chill here all day and I'm not going to work because I can push it off.
Yeah, but I would also make the argument that like that kind of person would have got fired in the office anyway. In fact, it probably would have happened just faster
Right.
because it would be more prevalent.
But the benefit of having a work from home job is like if you are that kind of person where you know you can depend on yourself to do something, then like, you know,
The autonomy is great.
yeah, it works for you.
I was actually speaking about this. I forget the guest, so forgive me, but I remember we were talking about it on the podcast. And one of the things I said, I'd be curious if you agree with this or not, is I think entry level positions. I was talking with Aaron about it, Aurelian. I think entry level positions should be 100% in the office for that same reason. To like, it's not even about punishing them. It's more about getting them in a physical environment close to like minded individuals.
Yeah.
And to like help them understand a standard. Like, and then also like those interpersonal relationships that you're going to build, because like if all of your friends came from school and now you're not in school, like what interactions do you have with people?
Yeah.
But I think like once you get to a position where you're like 1 year into corporate America, you can start getting hybrid. 2 years, 3 years into corporate America, you can have like 3 days work from home, 2 days work in the office. Once you get to like 5 years, you pretty much learned anything you need from corporate.
Yeah.
You know how to act, right? And then at that point, like I would always say, like, I actually made this argument with one of the people that we have a business together, but I told him, I was like, if we have to hire someone that I have to micromanage, why the fuck are we hiring them?
Yeah.
I want to hire someone where I'm
might as
like,
well
hey,
do
I
the
need this
job
by
yourself.
Thursday. I'll see you in 3 days.
Yeah.
That's what I want. If I can't get that, then I'm not going to hire you.
Yep.
So for me personally, I can see the value in that being said, all these businesses are small where like I have full sight of these individuals,
Yeah.
right? I couldn't imagine if I had like a company of like 1,000 individuals, then maybe I would want an office. But my brother has a business, like a consulting company. He only has 5 employees. All of them have to go into the office. He makes them. Like, he's like, if you guys don't want to, he's that guy. He's like, if you guys don't want to come into the office, that's fine. You're not working here. And I'll give you another one because he really believes in the collaborative efforts.
Yeah.
They don't have cubes. They all work. Like, all of their stuff is at like this big mega table.
Wow.
So like if you walk in their office, they have one conference room and then big mega table.
Yeah.
And that's where everybody in the company works. And I'm like, how the fuck do you guys get anything done?
I'm not against that in the aspect of like what you said, entry level, because I think it's good for collaboration and hearing, you know, other speaking points. And sometimes you'll catch a conversation that would, you know, benefit for whatever you're dealing with. And just like scenario wise and bouncing ideas off each other. Yeah, that makes sense. But I do feel like when you've been at a job for so long, that you know you can do it on your own, and it's you don't see as many crazy out there scenarios anymore that you feel like you can tackle it one way or another, or it relates to something you've dealt with in the past. Then yeah, I believe being able to work from home is.
What do you do
privilege.
out of curiosity? Because I have no idea. Like, not who you do it for, because I want to keep some of your anonymity out. But like, what do you do?
Bodily injury claims for auto accidents.
Bodily injury claims for auto accidents. It's funny. So
Negotiate values of injuries or
for
like
what
monetary
the insurance
relief.
companies?
Yeah, and then
How'd you get in this line of work? You knew a guy who knew a guy?
I one of my best buddies, his father worked for a company, and he was like, "Hey man, I'm only recommending people that I think would be good at this job because it does have a high turnover rate, stress." And he was like, "I think you'd be good at it." And at the time, it's funny because it's like that the amount of money that I started for, it seems like nothing in comparison of like now. If I was offered that amount, I'd be like, "Oh God, I can't do it." But back then, right when I'm working. Bob Evans.
Oh, dude, it's
I
life changing money.
I'm like, that's
Amazing.
an insane amount of money. I had to take that job.
Can I tell you what my salary was for my first big boy job?
What?
Data analyst, $14 an hour.
Wow.
And I was like,
what's that per year?
I can tell you. Sorry, give me 1 second.
I'm just curious.
No, that's it. Okay, so 14 times 40 times 52. Before taxes, $29,120.
Right, okay.
And 19-year-old Arion was like, fuck yeah, boys, we made it.
Yeah, you're looking up cars online.
And I'll never forget. Oh, dude, not cars. I got a fucking apartment.
Oh,
I was like, Dad, I'm moving out. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
But no, and I'll never forget when I got a raise to $2. So from $14 to $16 an hour, and I was like, I had a girlfriend at the time. I was like, baby, we're going out for dinner. And she's like, oh, where are we going? I think we went to like TGI Fridays.
Yeah, Red Lobster.
Hey, what are you laughing at? Humble beginnings.
Yeah,
So,
seriously,
but
that's
to
so
your
funny.
point, perspective's a bitch, man. Like if you would have asked me now, I'd be like, how did I live off that?
You don't have
But
to get the 2 for $25 tonight, babe. You can pick something off the menu.
you know that one page we never look at?
Yeah.
Tonight we splurge.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny because I remember those days.
So you started, the pay was much more humble than it is now, but essentially the way you got into this line of work was you were introduced to an individual who thought that you had the precursor
Yeah.
mentality to be successful in it. And have you worked there ever since?
Worked there ever since. Yeah.
Wow, how
You
many
just
years now? What,
grow. I've been there, I think 7 years now.
God bless.
8 years. Yeah, and it's been a blessing in disguise. Honestly, the stuff it allows me to do outside of that.
Do they have any problem with the fighting? Obviously,
they
not.
love it. My managers and my directors, they all come to the fights. They see me knock people out, so it's cool.
The emails on a Monday after a weekend like that are very soft. Like,
Yeah.
hey, Drew, whenever you got time,
Yeah,
whenever you want, if you could get this to me, no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. They're all super chill, but yeah, I think it also helps with building a connection because I feel like in like the corporate world, if they see you're passionate about something else and they see you're willing to and how hard you work for that, then they know they set an expectation of what you can do for that company. But I also think everything I've learned from fighting has helped me in the corporate world so much because you've probably heard the saying, once you start fighting, anything else is peanuts. Have you ever heard that phrase?
I heard about wrestling.
Yeah, so
I'm a little biased on this one.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with it. In this, I used to not understand what do you mean by that? But it's like any stressful situation.
You're not cutting weight. You're not getting punched in the face. You're not doing any of this shit. Like,
Yeah,
people at work or people that work with me often say, like, does anything faze you? And I'm like, actually, I'm a pretty emotional, sensitive guy. Problem is, whenever I'm at work, my mentality is always like, I'm getting paid stupid amounts of money to
Yeah.
deal with dumb shit.
yeah.
Why would I ever complain about this?
I think my thing is fighting is such a high level of adversity that you have to meet in terms of mentality, physically, the preparation and the dedication to prepare for fighting, and then the act of fighting in the moment. I mean, you feel every emotion, right? You're nervous, you're scared, you're excited, you're empowered, you feel like you can do it, you know what I mean? And then just the energy from the crowd, and then getting in there, and then those moments of when everything feels like it's gone silent and you're fighting your opponent, you know what I mean? It's just all those feelings. It's you take a high level, stress level of situation like that, and then you're at work, somebody's yelling at you, you got a dumpster fire going on in the back, and you're just like, okay, I'll just deal with it
Yeah.
as it comes. And so I think that's helped me also as like a parent. You know what I mean? It's like, because like kids are stressful.
I actually learned a lot more patience from parenting than I learned from fighting, if I can be honest with you.
Yeah, because there's no end on like like you deal with adults and like, hey, you're pissing me off, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll stop. Or it's like you tell a kid you're pissing me off, and they're just like, ah.
I'm pissing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, you do have to learn patience.
That's what I meant with like my daughter. Like, what am I gonna do? Yell at her? She's just literally gonna like if I even raise my voice around my daughter.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was on a conference call for work and it got a little spicy. You know what I mean? So I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then my daughter's in the background. She's like, Daddy. She thought I was talking to her. I was like, no, baby. I had to stop my Teams meeting and like go console my 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So it was. I'm glad I fought. I'm glad I'm a father. I'm glad I have the work-life balance that I have now. It wasn't always the case. And I just find that there's an immense amount of value now for having that. Let me ask you a different question. What would someone have to pay you to go back into the office 5 days a week, 8 hours a day?
God, I don't even know if that's worth it.
What's the value of that? $100,000? $100,000 a year on top of what you make right now. You got to go back in the office 5 days a week.
100,000 on top of what I'm already making.
100,000 on top of what you're making now. Yeah, flat.
Oh God, I don't know. The thing is, I still go in office. You know what I mean?
Every now and again.
Every now and then, yeah.
But that's different from like, okay, 8 o'clock. Where's Drew? Why isn't he at his cube?
Right, but that's what I'm saying. The days that I am in the office, those hours drag on.
Oh yeah.
And I think about how much I can get done while I'm working and like putting more. Because like when I'm at home, I have the mindset of like, oh, they probably don't think I'm working, so I need to constantly be working. So I am constantly working, right? So
that inverse relationship.
Yeah, so boost productivity
for you.
Yeah, for me.
Because you want to be like, look how productive I am.
Well, yeah, I want to show them that like you can trust me while I'm home. You know what I mean? But when I'm in office, I'm like, I'm in office. They know
Fuck you.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
You can see me.
You know I'm here. You know what I mean? So I think it's a little.
Your boss might watch this and be like, all right, 5 days work from home.
Yeah. Hey, watch it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what's so crazy to me? When I was in university and when I was in high school and university, you might agree with me. Like everything was always like, you guys can get away with this now, but wait till you get to the real world. And then or actually in high school, they'd be like, it's not going to be like this in university.
We're not gonna have a calculator
then you go to college. Yes. Yeah, they were wrong.
It's always like that.
Then you go to college. No, it got worse.
Yeah.
It got worse. So then you get to college and they're like, well, it's not going to be like that in corporate America. I'll tell you right now, corporate America, like especially if you work, when I worked for Amdocs and it was like a publicly traded company and all this other shit, it was worse than university. It's like, dude, it was hand holding like no one could ever tell you. And then what was even worse about that is like, there was no room for passion. Mm-hmm. If they do, they kill your will for passion. Like I'll tell you this, I've worked for a Fortune 500 company and I worked for small entrepreneurs. I choose small entrepreneurs every day of the week, but that's also because they demand more out of me. And it's like, I think different strokes for different folks. I think if you're looking for like a $60,000 a year job, you're going to work that until the day you die and then retire on your 401k, cool, work wherever the fuck you want. But then there's like, where's the fucking color to life?
Yeah.
Like when you were talking about like, you know, some of my coworkers think it's cool that I have like this passion. Dude, I'll tell you right now, I've had coworkers where their passion's alcohol after work.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Oh, it's 4:30. Time to hit a beer. I'm like, oh man, like no fucking wonder you're such a gem to like at work. You know? It's like,
yeah. Different strokes for different folks for sure.
I just, I don't know, man. I think that corporate America is kind of weird. Like sometimes we get lost in the sauce on too much stupid shit. And I feel like whenever it's like a smaller company, it's just basically like, if this doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? And I find that I enjoy that approach.
Yeah, but
much
I think
more.
that's because they're a smaller business and everything affects you more so.
It's directly
than it does
correlated to money.
in like a massive company where it's like you may take a chance on something that doesn't work out. Okay, it doesn't work out. We still have income coming on the back end from other avenues.
Can I tell you a theory I have?
Yeah.
I think certain companies intentionally bloat to show footprint so that they can like carry that weight to Congress and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, well, if you change this, we're going to lose this many jobs and all this other stuff. I'm like, what are you going to do? Ruin the economy? It's like, yeah, but what are these jobs? Like the fucking, like how many people are like Jira managers that like their whole job is basically create tickets for people? Like there's so many useless, like don't need to exist jobs. Middle management is like praying to God that like hybrid and remote work doesn't last, because like how many people were laid off that were like basically they offered no value. It's like Drew did all the work and Drew can't report directly to the CRO, so like Drew has like some intermediary person that has to handle that. Well, when you have a 20 people in an office, you might need 3 of those people. When everybody's on a Zoom call, you might need 1.
Yeah.
It's like, how many of those people got kicked out and they don't really have a tangible skill set. They don't really know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, productivity and having like quality employees. I definitely agree with you there. Where, I mean, I'd rather have a handful of people that I know I can depend on versus 30 people who they might get it done, they might not.
They're not good,
you know
done,
what I mean?
yeah. Forgive me, went down a bit of a rabbit hole
No,
there.
you're good.
Corporate America. So we're talking about some of the things that you have like on the 6-month horizon or plan. I have to ask, what happened with the Luke fight?
The Luke fight was supposed to happen.
He just won his fight. Chad invites you to the ring. You guys have a face-off. Everyone's losing their shit. And the next time I'm talking to you, you're like, nope, that fight's not happening. Because that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about tonight.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have a prior history. I just don't like him. And we were supposed to fight 9-6. Got in the ring after he won his fight. And then Chad had an opportunity to bring on a Muay Thai legend for a show for 9-6 instead. I think just time frame wise, it worked out better.
Lordzilla? I think we could talk about it because he announced it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he pushed you guys because he had Lordzilla?
Yeah, so he had Lordzilla on for 9-6 as the main event, which, I mean, obviously, Muay Thai legend, so great for the promotion. And then they pushed us back to a different date that I can't do, and so hopefully we can make it happen beginning of the year. But that's the plan as of right now.
I see you're fighting for Shamrock here coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a few big fights lined up for the summer and into the fall, and unfortunately they all kind of fell through for different reasons. And I've been training super hard for all these fights coming up, and since they all fell through, I figured why not stay active. I haven't been in St. Louis in over 2 years, and it'd just be a good one for my friends and family to come see. And I'm fighting a good guy, and so it'd be a good event.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be cage side. I go to all the events, one, because I like fighting. Like, I just enjoy watching, and I think watching it live is the best way to watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then 2, I also like to give to all the, like, I can't be a hypocrite and be like bitching about like fighter pay and stuff like that, and then not
support.
Yeah, it's like, fighters need to get paid more, but I don't want to buy a ticket. Like, all right, well, then the fuck is going to happen? I did have one question when you talked about like how busy your schedule was and then all these fights fell out. Like, I understand that story for the Luke fight, but can you kind of, not that you have to go through each fight that didn't pan out, but like, what is that negotiation like with you? Because you had so much on your plate, then you had nothing on your plate, which I think is like wild.
Yeah, so like I said, now I'm at a stage of my career where I'm fortunate where promotions are starting to reach out to me to fight these top level fighters, and just for different reasons. Like, I know one of the promotions changed management, got bought out by another company, but I mean, they've been good to me, and they set something up for me later this year. And then the one before that, just it was more on the other fighter side. There's just some things going on, and so, but again, that promotion as well, really great to me, set something up for me later this year. So I'm just in a good spot right now where although those didn't happen at that time, they've opened up bigger doors for me with those promotions and those guys who own those company or those promotions for bigger things down the road. So it sucks at the time, but it was a blessing in disguise. So,
are you still training exclusively with Quentin O'Brien right now? Do you do any cross training?
Yeah, so I was and this all comes back to the conversation we were like, I'm pretty low key under the radar, and I know that's where I left off, or I forgot the question, but I stay under the radar, not intentionally, but I don't post a lot. I used to try really hard to boost what I post on social media and to gather a following so that I could get sponsors and stuff, but now that I hit a point in my career where I can financially depend on myself for a lot of things, I'm not so much worried about that.
God bless.
Yeah, I was with Jermaine Andre, and then he switched gyms, just too far away, so I need something a little bit closer. So I switched with Quentin. I reached out to Quentin in 2018, and I went out and trained, and I've been with him ever since, man. He's a genius. So I'm exclusively with him, but he does allow me to cross-train with other gyms and get different looks. So I'll go to ESMMA, I'll go to St. Charles, and that's primarily where I'm at right now.
Got you. When you do cross-train, out of curiosity, what is what do you cross-train for? Just sparring rounds?
Yeah,
also
sparring rounds,
bodies?
And then, if, I have buddies at different gyms, so if they need a specific look for fights that is more geared towards striking, I'll come out and help them if they need me to. But, yeah, primarily for sparring partners, yeah.
Gotcha. Brother, I gotta be honest with you. I'm a little disappointed that I'm not gonna get to see you fight for Stand Up to Fight series. But then I saw the poster for Shamrock, and I was like, thank God, at least I still get to watch you fight. Because that is one of the things. Is like I don't remember the last time you fought. You said it was about 2 years that you fought in St. Louis.
Yeah, it's been a little over 2 years since I fought in St. Louis, and I mean,
Why is that the case?
Just been fortunate with really some bigger promotions that allow me to fight across the U.S. Like fought for a world title over in England, and that was really cool. And
do you like the traveling?
Yeah, I love the traveling aspect. I think it just broadens your horizon as a fighter, putting yourself.
Do you ever worry about being brought in too loose of the hometown guy?
No. If anything, that motivates me more.
Yeah.
It's so funny. We joke around at the gym all the time, but like, you just got to say one thing off color to me, or it's like so and so was talking about you, and it's like I'm instantly locked in. So very easy motivated. Not that I get like angry and make a mistake, but I'm very easily motivated.
You were saying off the record, I got to bring it up now. So when Sean Woodson was on, he talked about how petty he was. He's like, I'm Prince Petty.
Oh,
but
man.
off the record, you were talking about how petty you are and how like you'll screenshot like if one of your boys is like fighting someone and they're talking shit, like you'll screenshot tweets and Facebook messages to be like, hey, look what this motherfucker's saying about you. So where does that pettiness come from?
I think it's just like the competitive side of me where it's like,
do you actually care what they're saying, or are you more like, this motherfucker's talking shit?
Yeah, it's more just like the audacity of this dude.
How dare
he's
you?
Fucking good. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, even if...
You're such a cocky guy.
But the thing is like, I'm sure,
I love it. I was the same fucking way.
I'm sure it does come off cocky, but it's really just, one, I think it's a confidence and belief in myself because I do know how hard I work, and I do believe I work harder than a lot of other people in terms of consistency and training. But at the same time, it's just like do you have like the audacity of this dude thinking he's going to do what to me? Or it's like thinking he's going to do what to you? You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, we joke around the gym that I'm King Petty at the gym for sure because, yeah, I'm screenshotting everything. People are tagging each other in or people that tag me and stuff. You know, I'm like, okay, I'll remember this.
Why don't you let this side out more?
Because I'm a reserved individual, and for real, what it is like, I'm like so anti-drama.
It's not drama though. It's like, I gotta be honest with you. For me, I fucking love it.
Yeah, I love other people's drama for sure. When I see people, if I see a Facebook post and it's got 125 comments,
you're like,
I'm reading each one, and I'm
baby.
like, oh,
clear the schedule.
Yeah, man. I'm like, oh, he makes a good point. I'm like, oh, look what he said.
Dude, were you aware of the Bree drama, Bree Eckert?
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't watch any like document. Like I don't really watch TV. I'm not really that guy. But for that drama with like Dan O'Connor and stuff like that, boy, I was like just eating it up.
I'm eating it up. And you know what the best thing about local fight drama is? It is very entertaining. Most of the time, fighters are good shit talkers. Just from like, it's just a sport. You know what I mean? So like, you're in the gym, you're talking shit with the boys. You know what I mean? It's gonna come out one way or another. So I'd love to see it come out on Facebook, but as long as I'm not involved in it,
as long as,
yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Because I think my thing is like, I could say a lot, you know what I mean? But then it's like, I'm not on my phone like that. So it's like, you may comment and say something to me, and then I'm like, I'm going to get back to that. And the next thing you know, it's tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, I think that's the best way to be.
Yeah, but it's like, if you have real time. If
no, but what better insult is there to be like, what up, bitch? And then like, you're gone for 36 hours.
Yeah, but then,
and you're like, I was so busy, I just got back to this.
But dude, that's the other thing about the internet, bro. None of them, they don't have, like, they have all the time in the world. You know what I mean?
Bro, so you have no idea how right you are.
By the time you come back, there's 50 comments. He's scared. Look, he's not responding. You got him. Da-da-da. And then by the time I respond, it's no longer about the subject. I've lost my window. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm for real not on my phone like that. So it's like, if you're going to talk shit, I like, you got to say it to my face.
I broke my rule once. So like, I make it a rule to never argue online. I broke my rule once, and it was for Steve Berger. And we were talking about the COVID vaccine in particular. Yeah. So I was like, you know what, Steve? I don't have the time to like Facebook this. Yeah. Call me. I gave him my phone number, and I was like, well, we'll talk about it. We talked on the phone for 3 fucking hours. Oh, really? I had him on speaker while I was working for 3 hours. And all I could get from it at the end of 3 hours was like, on one specific topic, was like, yeah, well, you know, if the government subsidized it, I'd be fine. So like, I didn't even get like a, you're right area, and I got like a, under the right circumstances, you're right. Yeah. And that I told myself, I was like, I think a lot of arguing is not about a lot of social media argument is not about actually having a point.
No, not even about.
It's
point.
about just
being
like
heard.
yelling out into the ether your thought. And you don't give a shit if anybody changes their mind, and you're not in it to have your mind changed.
Exactly.
And then after that moment, now I get to do. I can't tell you how many times like I'm like sitting there posting this like, you dumb motherfucker, you think this, and then I'm like, delete. I was like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Like it.
I think that's my other thing is like, if I ever am passionate about something or something that's said towards me, it's like
I'll beat Drew up.
Yeah, and then separate. Yeah, but the second that stuff happens, I'm literally like, I'm over it. You know what I mean? It's like me and my wife talk about it all the time. I'm impossible to make mad, but it's like once I am mad, then it's like then I can't let it go. You know what I mean?
So that's when Prince Petty comes out.
Yeah, with fighting, that's the thing is I don't care about anything. You could say you're gonna whoop my ass in soccer, basketball, chess. I'd be like, all right, man, you got it. You know what I mean? Or it's like somebody's like, I'll tie you up in a pretzel. I'm like, you're probably right. You know what I mean? But they're like, I'll fucking drop you. And I'm like, we're gonna find out. You know what I mean? It's like that's just how I am. And it's
Bet.
Like, guys at the gym, guys at my gym, like we're all like brothers. So it's like they know how to. We'll be talking shit when we're sparring and stuff, and it's just all fun and games. But it also brings out the best side of each other. So,
is there anything in particular you're looking forward to here next?
Fight wise, or just like in general?
Life.
Oh man, I'm not anything particular, honestly. I mean, I got some good fights coming up. Like I said, I'll talk about them more like when they're signing paper, because you know how it is when fighting. It's like, oh, hey, we want you to fight this day against this person for this promotion, for this belt, whatever. And then you tell everyone, and it doesn't happen. And then the next one comes, and then that one doesn't happen. And then you know what I mean. So,
you start becoming the boy who cried wolf and then fights.
Exactly, and
it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. So I just made it a point in my life where I'm not going to talk about fights until it's signed and done, and then from there on, then
the Shamrock one is though, correct?
Yeah, Shamrock one's for sure happening. I'll be here 7/12.
Do you know who you're fighting? Or?
Yeah, his name's Vince Easel.
Really?
Yeah.
Vince is a throwback, dude.
Yeah. So he's coming back. He just fought recently kickboxing. I mean, he looked really good. So
yeah. Vince
is
cold.
Yeah, I remember watching that fight, and I was like, wow.
Can I ask you one last question? Because I've only ever fought in a cage. I've never fought in a ring.
Mm-hmm.
But like you have fought in both, like a cage and a ring. For Shamrock, I'm sure it'll be a cage. Does that have any bearing on you at all whatsoever?
The movement's different.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so like when you think about fighting in a ring, it doesn't feel as closed in, and then also it's shorter. So like I can work you into a corner, and by like movement, you know what I mean, and then you can get stuck in a corner. On a cage, you're just constantly moving in a circle. So I think it's harder to cut people off.
Are you talking about the angles of like a square versus like not an octagon, a hexagon? Yeah. That makes sense. Does it ever affect you the fact that like you have no ability to like
lean on the
rings or something?
No,
like
honestly, I mean, if you watch a lot of my fights, I don't really hang on the ropes that much. I mean, I might in a sense where I have an opportunity to counter and I'm letting them advance, but in terms of, using the ropes to my ability, I don't really have the fight style for that. So I try to stay off them as much as possible.
So cage, ring doesn't affect you too much?
It doesn't affect me too much, correct. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, brother, listen, I'm going to be there for the July 12th.
Yeah.
July 12th. And I'm looking forward to watching you fight. I'm looking forward to watching Lily fight and Nico fight. I think we'll also fight. Dustin's going to fight that night as well. I appreciate you being on. Before we call it an end, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that I maybe didn't touch on?
No, that's it, man. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I'll tell you what, I'd like to also circle back if... In some time, I'd like to circle back for other reasons. I'd like to see where you're... I genuinely believe in your career. I think you're one of the coldest... I don't know if I did this enough justice. I don't glaze too many fighters, so if you guys don't like this, like, skip for 20 seconds. There are a lot of guys that I knew that necessarily weren't, like, in my weight class or even in my... Because, like, you're a kickboxing guy, like, I'm a MMA guy. But I think it's, like, natural for all guys, especially fighters, to be like, could I hang with him? Could I do this? Could I do that? There have been very few people where I was like, oh, fuck that. I don't want any part of that. You were one of them, dude. I watched you fight one time, and I was like, that sounds like a hard spar.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that, because I think this might just be a fighter thing, but you ever... And I'm hoping it's an every fighter thing. It's not trying to look like a douche, but...
Fuck this boy up!
Yeah. You know how, like, as a fighter, I feel like you walk in, like every room you walk in, you kind of size everyone up.
A little bit.
Yeah, just because you want to like see what you would do if shit
Well,
goes
who's a threat?
Dude, that's a guy thing.
Yeah, but most guys can't fight, so like they'll walk into a room and everybody's a threat.
Yeah, I mean, because you got exactly.
You know what I
Because you
mean?
got to think though, because like the average dude is like, you know, when I see red, it's over. I just black out. You know, things like that. So you hear stuff like that, and that's like a common thing you hear. I mean, what Liver King just said that about Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah.
That is the.
And he's got a family to fight for. He would whoop his ass.
And he's like, you might have 100 ways.
You know. If you would have asked 18-year-old Arion, I would have said that there was something to like the emotional combat aspect. If you asked me at 32 years of age, for me to hear a grown man say some stupid shit like that, it proves to me that you have never been in a fight. Now, here's the thing. You have probably been in altercations that you've probably like, because you could attest to this, like you can beat up someone that you knew you were going to beat up. That's not a fight.
Yeah.
A fight is like back and forth.
Yeah.
He took my shots and he's kicking me and punching me, and now I can't just like put this guy away. I might have to take this guy to the deep waters and drown him there, or I might have to really set something up and get him with something he's not looking. And a real fight. When people say some dumb shit like that, I'm like, you've never been in a fight.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna will my way through what a knockout? Ask any fighter who's ever been knocked out ever. Just will yourself not. Like, no one wants to get knocked out. You want to know what's the most frustrating? He doesn't know this, but I'm sure you'll agree with me. What's the most frustrating way to lose? Like a body shot.
Yeah.
Because your consciousness is still there, but like your body's
Body
like,
shuts down.
you're like, get up, move. And you're like, we're not going anywhere. That's so fucking frustrating. Or, because you're not a grappler, tapping. To like someone's choking you. Like, you have to make the conscious decision. Like, is it going to be my ACL or is it going to be my pride? You know what I mean? It's tough. But like whenever I hear people like the Liver King talking, I'm like, you clearly. I also want to.
It's so funny you say that as an adult because right, if I was 17, hearing him say that,
like, whoa.
As an adult, it's like, whoa, he's an adult. He knows what he's talking about, right? And now,
you're a fucking idiot.
I feel like I'm a kid still, but at 31, I'm like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, and anybody who did know what they were talking about would never make that comment.
Exactly.
Would never make that comment.
Well, have you seen the video with him in the roach?
Yeah.
The roach?
I'll show it to you after this shit. He's on.
Can I just say another thing too? I think we live in an age of like fucking internet clout and like people being famous for absolutely fucking nothing. Now this is obviously like very oxymoronic for me to say because I'm like doing a podcast, right? But it's the Liver King was a very successful guy before he did the Liver King. He had a very successful business. If you gave me $10 million cash right now, you want to know what I'm doing with that?
Disappear.
Nothing different.
Yeah.
Nothing different. I'm not going to take 2 or 3 million of that, hook myself up on all this androgynous shit, create a new Instagram and try to be like a finfluencer or whatever. I'm doing the same shit I'm doing now. You guys would never fucking know if someone threw me an extra milli. You'd have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
There'd be signs though.
Yeah.
But all golds.
New boots.
No, so whenever I see shit like that, I think to myself, like, there's something deeper in this. Is like, I think the Liver King is actually doing all this for more clout because his numbers are going down, his notoriety is going down, all this other stuff, and he knows that like the next to sex, what's the next thing that sells? Conflict.
Yeah.
Sex and conflict. So it's like, who are you gonna have a conflict with? The king of
my
podcasting.
thing is, he's ruined the face of his companies now, brand wise.
Yeah.
He could easily rebrand, put it under a different name, not become public with his face connected to it, and he could move on.
He could
and make money and be happy
right off into the sunset. I think he's addicted to that like.
Yeah, but now he had the fame. He was on every podcast. They made a Netflix thing about
I
him.
also think he's mentally unwell.
Yeah.
It's just forgive me.
When you're on every anabolic,
Well, not just that, but I think it's just
SARM,
I just think it's weird. Like, if I were famous, you want to know what I want to be famous for? Like, yeah, being a good guy or like a smart guy. Well, no, like he does business the right way. That'd be nice. Or like he gives his time for the right reasons. That'd be nice.
Like a Tony Robbins.
Yeah, like you want to know what I don't want to be known for? Fake abs and walking around everywhere eating raw liver
with the shirt off.
It's just the fucking weird. It's like all of that was weird. The whole thing is weird. By the way, you want to know who I think does a very similar thing, but in a much more intelligent way? That the black bodybuilder The morning routine guy. What's his fucking name?
Austin Hall or something like
Austin
that.
Hall. So Austin Hall, he's like Liver King 2.0, but what does he do? Everything's like luxury. Everything's luxury. Everything's high level. Everything's like, there's no stupid shit with it. It's like, I got a Rolex on and I have these $50,000 leather shoes and I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to yell at the moon or whatever the fuck he does.
Yeah.
But like, he gets a lot of that notoriety and fame without any of the dumb shit.
Yeah.
Ask him how many times he's had to eat raw liver.
Liver's good though.
Yeah.
Go eat raw liver. Go eat bull testicles. Go eat all these other things. What the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah, I think that's.
I've had liver, Tony, but it's been cooked like normal human beings. By the way, you want to know something funny about that? It doesn't even fucking make any sense because the act of cooking things adds nutrients to meals. There's energy that exerts from fire. It's one of the things that created cognitive abilities within like Homo sapiens way back in the fucking day when we were still like primordial creatures or whatever. Like cavemen. Once they found fire, you could see the cranial advancements because of it. So like you got this individual.
Very strong individual.
Sorry, this very strong individual who's like, yeah, eat raw meat. Forget about all this other shit that we've done over the course of many hundreds of centuries and go back to what? Primal ancestry life. You want to know that
there's a reason we got.
You know what? The retardation of the whole concept is so on its face. If that way of life was the proper way to live, guess what we'd all be doing?
Yeah, we'd still be doing it.
I hate to say it this way, but hormone engineered factory farming seems to be doing just fine for a planet with 8 billion humans.
Yeah.
Ask fucking medieval time England.
Okay.
They didn't have running water. They would die from the black shit. We want to go back to that? Primordial? The fuck are we talking about? I'm serious.
What the fuck?
Yes, you never heard of the black shit? Bro, diarrhea. No, the Black Plague was a thing, but the black shit was also a thing. Like, diarrhea was like a main cause of death. Imagine this.
Yeah, I've been there.
You want to go back in time? Imagine this. You're 16th century. Drew's like, Knuckles, man, great training session. I go and I shit and it's water. Now I got to go to Drew the next day and be like, I'm going to die tomorrow. Why? What happened? Oh, I had the black shit. Like, I'm serious. You guys are laughing. Dude, mortality rates were like off the charts. We talk about like vaccinations and shit now. Listen, if you told me, would I rather be an impoverished Albanian in America in the year of our Lord 2025 without 2 pennies rubbed to my name, or like the wealthiest monarch 1,000 years ago? I'm picking today 10 times out of 10. You want to know why? One reason more than any other.
Pornhub.
I have.
I just.
I was gonna say air conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. That's pretty important.
Working from home, baby.
Yeah. Delete that.
Oh no, we're clipping that. Oh, Drew, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go down on a Liver King rant. This is so stupid. This whole shit is so stupid. I feel like what's gonna happen is we're gonna come full circle though. Like we right now we're at like peak insanity. Like right now, where we think that the internet's a real place and that all these fucking numbers matter.
I think it gets 10 times worse.
Really?
Yeah, the metaverse.
That fell flat on its face, though.
Yeah, but you don't think
Web 3? No, I think all of that was retarded.
I think they're going to try to make it come back in a different way.
I think they lost $2.8 billion. They fucked up bad.
Weren't they at one point talking about
people can't afford homes. People can't afford homes.
They were buy meta
and they were
homes.
trying to talk about like, well, you could buy digital assets. Shut the fuck up.
You can live in the metaverse.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Storming with VR goggles on.
I think that's also the correlation between why like suicide is so high is because during COVID, they were all trying to tell people that like, you don't need human interaction. You don't need love and affection, all these. You can get all you want from the internet. Yeah, how's that one working out?
They said New York had the highest suicide rate during COVID.
And
but what's crazy is I'm looking at the
No, we have the highest suicide rate now. Not during COVID, now.
Yes, now.
But during COVID, it was
it's like can you Google real quick? Can you give it a Goog? Suicide rates. I think I don't know if it's for women, but I know for men right now is an actually awful time And I think it's a direct correlation to a lot of things like macroeconomically, socioeconomically.
Yeah.
There's been a war on men for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
With women earning more money and wanting to be hypergamous, men now have to make more money for the same level of woman. It's like it's tough being a man right now if you want to be like a successful man.
It's funny because, or it's not funny, but I remember when we were talking about like the suicide rate in New York, but I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's just rising steadily.
So, okay, it's the highest now. It's higher than it was in COVID.
Yeah, I fought for a promotion out there. And I've never been in New York City. You see it on TV and stuff, you know what I mean? But I've never been there. When I fought there, yeah, I got to check it out. And then I didn't realize that the average like square foot in an apartment is like sub 500 feet.
Oh, yeah.
Bro.
So,
Yeah.
It's insane.
Literally this big.
and so, yeah, you're.
No,
During
this
COVID,
this studio in New
Yeah.
York,
It's like $5,000.
depending on where you're at, because that's the other thing. It's like, what burg are you in? If you're
Yeah.
like in Queens, it's one thing, and if you're in
Yeah.
down the street from Wall
But
Street,
then
it's
when
gonna be
they,
a different
when they
thing.
had that isolation rule where you can't leave your house or whatever, imagine sitting in a 500 square foot room. You have no money in your account because you can't work. You know what I mean? You have, yeah, all you can
I
look- you
personally
can't
don't
look
know
at-
how anyone lives in
you
New
can't look at
York
any
unless they're
green.
wealthy. It's
Yeah.
the same way I feel about California. So the last time I was in New York was actually after their congestion law passed, and I will be the first person to say that congestion law might be like a wise thing, because I've never seen New York be like cleaner and less traffic.
Maybe it's just from being a Missouri boy, but it's
Well,
there's no green there.
Bro, I would
even
never
when I walked
leave.
through Central Park, I just felt like it didn't feel like a park.
I think St. Louis is like ass backwards in a lot of its management. However, the Rust Belt area, first of all, the people.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if you've got like West Coast is like, who are you? What do you have to add to my life? Like, how can I benefit from this interaction? It's like so surface level. Then if you go to like the East Coast, it's kind of like better people, but man, is it harsh. And more importantly, the congestion is, I whenever I go to New York, I never want to be there longer than 48 hours. It's the same way I feel like with LA. 36 hours is about my limit.
You know why
Then I cannot wait to get home. Like me and my wife have talked about like where we want to retire and stuff like that. Like I know that I want to be on a coast, but like we'll probably go back to Albania. We'll probably get some like fucking beachfront property in Albania. I'm dead serious because I don't want to live in California and I don't want to live on the East Coast. I don't want to live in Florida. I lived in Florida. I don't want to live in Florida again.
You can live like Myrtle Beach.
No, I'm good because like, what do I want to be?
Texas.
I don't want to be around
Texas,
other
yeah.
people that are like dying. Texas maybe, but then it's the Gulf. And have you ever been to the Gulf? It's like the ugliest beaches. It's like the ugliest water. So fucking, it's all that oil sediment that's coming out. It's a fucking dark water. I want to go to the Mediterranean. I want to go to my people. I want to eat Kalamata olives, feta cheese, and wear a Speedo when I'm 90 with my belly's hanging out. And just, I don't give a fuck. I'm about to die. What do I care? Or maybe by then, they have like some new fucking thing they can inject into me. And I'm like, all teed out. Just fucking roiding rage.
Yeah,
Where are we talking about? I'm sorry.
no, yeah, we got off a little track, but
Pornhub.
yeah, yeah.
By the way, is this a good time to announce that this will be the first episode of the podcast that we have exclusively, no, sorry, not exclusively, but in conjunction with, so we're going to be on YouTube, Spotify, and OnlyFans.
Oh, really?
No,
Wow.
no,
Oh,
I'm
I was
fucking
like,
Drew, I appreciate you, brother.
appreciate it, man. Thank you.